Chapter 444. Big Earthworm, what are you yelling for? Will you die if you keep your voice down? Little Shuai scolded. Haha, are you envious? Little Mouse, I feel like my entire body is filled with energy. If you dare to be arrogant again, I'll beat you up. After the dragon vine swallowed Mu Yu's sword intent, its entire body was like a nimble and winding sharp sword. It flickered with overbearing sword light and sputtered in all directions, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Mu Yu looked at the dragon vine in surprise, because he realized that after the dragon vine swallowed his dragon roar sword intent, the sword intent did not disappear, but was used by the dragon vine. In this way, the dragon vine could use his sword intent to fight with others, and the battle power it produced was actually on par with Mu Yu. This meant that when Mu Yu asked the dragon vine to help, the opponent would have to face the pincer attack of two Mu Yu at the same time. This formation consumed a terrifying amount of spirit chi, but Mu Ling's sword itself had a strange spirit chi that did not care about this bit of consumption, not to mention that Mu Ling's sword itself could absorb spirit chi from the outside world. As long as Mu Yu and the dragon vine still had the strength to fight, basically, if the opponent's cultivation was not higher than Mu Yu's, they would lose without a doubt. Little Mouse, in the future, just wait for me to show off my dragon's might. You can only look at my back and tremble. The dragon vine was extremely proud. It opened its mouth and spat out another breath. The breath spun in the air and turned into a sky full of swords. It was as if 10,000 swords were piercing through the heart and smashed into the ground, blasting a large hole in the ground. Little Shuai was unhappy and shouted, "Don't be so proud. Mu Yu, quickly give me the Xian formation. I will also find formation. Let's fuse it together. It doesn't matter if it's powerful or not. The posture must be handsome. Let the big earthworm stare." Mu Yu shook his head helplessly. How could it be so easy to find a formation? Just now, when he was comprehending the sky, Sword 9 guides, he thought about whether Dragonfall from the 9 heavens could be fused with the dragon vine and tried out. It could be considered a spur of the moment. How could he have other thoughts? He tossed the Xian formation book to Little Shuai. In any case, this fellow could do whatever he wanted. Right now, he had yet to fully comprehend the essence of the Heaven Sword 9 Guides sword formation. He needed to study the sword scars left behind by his master again. But Dragon Vine happily said, "My sword skill is different from 9 Sky Sword Temptations Falling Dragon Howls to the Sky. I have to come up with a name. No matter what, I will be using it in the future. Of course, I have to put my name on it. I think Dragon Vine Howls to the Sky is a good name. Howl your ass. Do you want the big earthworm, Xiao Tian?" Xiao Shuai cursed as he flipped through the thick book of Xian formations. As he searched, he said, "I was the one who suggested this formation. You should be thanking me. From now on, he will be called Little Shuai Xiao Tian. When you use this move, you must shout out these 4 words sonorously and forcefully. Do you understand? Especially the 2 words Little Handsome. You have to stress it. It can give you endless power. I'll look down on you if it's 1 syllable too weak." Long Tongue roared, "Bah! When I shout out those 2 words, it feels like I've eaten shit. My opponent might even look down on me. They might even laugh until they're out of breath. Isn't it better to laugh until you're out of breath? When you fight with someone and your opponent laughs until he's out of breath, you can just kill him." Little Shuai snorted and said. Mu Yu couldn't help but laugh and said, "Then why not call it Mu Yu's Howls to the Sky? I'm the main force, okay? I don't care. I'll call it Little Shuai's Howls to the Sky. Dragon Vine Howls to the Sky. Little Shuai's Howls to the Sky." Mu Yu was defeated by these 2 weirdos. They could quarrel like this just for a name. They were really a rare, living treasure in the world. He shook his head and said, "All right, stop quarreling. In the future, I'll call this move Wind Wind, Descending Dragon Howls to the Sky. After all, it's made up of 2 different things, Wind 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 Heart Linking Formation and Falling Dragon Howls to the Sky. You can say whatever you want. In any case, when I use it in the future, I'll silently chant Dragon Vine Howls to the Sky. Little Mouse, in the future when enemies attack, you can just curl up into a ball and cheer for me and Mu Yu." Long Ting shook his head at Little Shuai proudly. "This is so infuriating. I must find a more powerful move that surpasses the big earthworm. Little Shuai was flustered and exasperated. His little claws quickly flipped through the book. Suddenly, he slammed the book shut and slapped his head, saying, there's no need for other formations at all. I seem to remember that I can control the 9 heavenly sword draws by myself. Muyu looked at Little Shuai in shock. Are you sure? Little Shuai rubbed his head in a daze and said, I forgot. Anyway, I seem to have a vague impression of it. When I saw the sword energy in the sky sword mound, some strange images flashed through my mind. I'm not sure where these images came from. However, when I saw you use the 9 heavenly sword draws in the wind heart linking formation, I felt that it was somewhat familiar. Little Shuai sat on the profound formations book and fell into deep thought while holding his chin. After a while, he suddenly shouted, Muyu, use the wind heart linking formation again. Let me see your understanding of the 9 temptations of the sky sword. Where exactly did Little Shuai come from? Muyu still couldn't figure it out. However, he used to follow Feng Haochen, and Feng Haochen was the ancestor of the 9 heavenly sword draws. Therefore, Little Shuai might know something. Muyu took out the Mu Ling sword again. The green 8 trigrams formation pattern appeared under his feet again. The wind heart linking formation flashed out. Little Shuai landed in the formation and blinked his eyes. Suddenly, many scenes flashed through his mind. The wind heart linking formation could allow everyone in the formation to communicate their thoughts. At that moment, everyone's thoughts could be transmitted to the others in the formation. Muyu looked at the scenes in Little Shuai's mind in shock. Those scenes were actually the scene of a graceful and valiant man using 9 swords to firmly suppress 5 spirit, Lord Yumeng. Sword Shadow, Chun Feng. Little Shuai, how do you have my master's memories? Muyu exclaimed in shock. Although he only saw some fragmented scenes, and these scenes weren't even connected, the fact that Little Shuai had these memories shocked him. Little Shuai shook his head. I'm not sure either. When I first came to the heavenly sword mound, I felt that it was strange. The sword chi here gave me an indescribable sense of intimacy. Then, those strange scenes appeared on their own. I don't even know where they popped out from. Dragonting also stared at Little Shuai strangely. Little Mouse, what is your relationship with Sword Shadow, Chinfeng? Maybe because I'm more handsome, the white-bearded old man implanted these memory fragments in me? Little Shuai said in high spirits. Muyu frowned. He didn't need to think to know that Little Shuai and his master had some sort of relationship. However, when Muyu first met Little Shuai, this fellow was just a strange egg with extremely thick skin. He was still muddle-headed and didn't know which chicken coop this egg was picked up from. He actually knew a lot of things that Muyu had never heard of before. Little Shuai hopped to the northeast of the 8 trigrams. He saw Muyu's evolution of the 7 style of the 9 guides of Heavenly Sword, and so he also swung his large tail and gathered all the spiritual energy into his body. Little Shuai then put one of his small hands on his waist, and the other pointed to the sky. He shouted loudly, Little Shuai's mysterious thunder fall. The green 8 trigrams suddenly turned into a blue light. The translucent blue light completely enveloped Little Shuai's body. The spiritual energy on Mu Ling's body was continuously drawn into Little Shuai's body by Little Shuai. Then, the blue light on his body became restless like lightning, and the white hair all over Little Shuai's body stood on end. Big Earthworm, watch my peerless sword move. Little Shuai's mysterious thunderfall. Countless bolts of lightning surrounded Little Shuai, and all the lightning slowly condensed into Little Shuai's small hand that was pointing to the sky. Then, all the blue sparks suddenly formed the shape of a sword that flashed with lightning. It soared into the sky and quickly flew towards Dragon Vine. Damn, Little Mouse, do you want to die? Watch me, Dragon Vine howls the sky. Long Tongue shouted. The sword intent on its body had not completely dissipated. Its body became straight, like a proud and aloof sword, and it faced Xiao Shuai's blue sword head-on. Boom! Little Shuai's large blue sword collided with Dragon Vine's sharp sword intent. A huge wave of spiritual energy spread out with them as the center. Sword energy flew in all directions, and the domineering sword energy rippled on the heavenly sword mound. The sword beams that the two of them unleashed swept across every rock on the celestial sword mound. The sword marks that Feng Haochen had created with his 9 heavenly sword guides seemed to have come alive. Terrifying sword beams flew out from all the sword marks, resonating with the sword intents that Xiao Shui and Long Tongue had unleashed. Then, all the sword chi in the heavenly sword mound formed a faintly discernible figure. That figure kept performing the 9 heavenly sword guides in the air. Every move and style appeared to Mu Yu's eyes, but it was so familiar yet strange. This is Master? Mu Yu was extremely shocked. The sword energy actually formed the image of his master when he was young, and he even began to deduce the true meaning of the heavenly sword 9 guides sword formation in front of him. The profound and cryptic feeling from before suddenly disappeared. The figure of Sword Shadow Qinfeng was so free and easy. He didn't even control the sword in his hand. Instead, it was scattered in the void. Every time his hand casually moved, runes would appear around his body. Immediately after, a sword would be pulled out from the void. The sword that was pulled out had already transformed into a myriad of illusions, and a sword move was performed to the extreme. With a slash of the sword, the heavens and earth would shatter. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. It was like a brilliant heavenly might that was unstoppable. After this move, the sword would automatically merge into the void and disappear. The heavenly sword 9 guides sword formation allowed the sword technique to break away from the fixed method of drawing the sword. The sword in the hand had already disappeared, but it was like a shadow that was everywhere. With a sword in the heart, one could pull out a 3-foot-long sword from anywhere and control the 9 heavens. This is the heavenly sword 9 guides sword formation. Mu Yu looked at his master's figure in front of him with infatuation. His mind was completely immersed in the sword intent that his master had displayed in the past. His entire person became extremely ethereal, and he actually began to involuntarily take out the shadow-splitting sword and started to imitate his master's movements. In the beginning, he always felt that something was missing. Now he gradually began to feel the threshold of the heavenly sword 9 guides sword formation. What Mu Yu didn't realize was that there was a figure silently observing him from afar in the rocky mound. This person stood there as if he had become one with the rocks around him. There was no breath of life. Even if someone walked past him, they wouldn't notice his existence. Chapter 445. The sword essence left behind by Jian Ying Chunfeng was domineering and proud. In the past, when he fought Formation Heavenly Tao here, he easily defeated Formation Heavenly Tao with his supreme sword formation. The sword formation of the 9 guides of Heavenly Sword was carved on the rocks of the mound. These sword intents were well preserved by Formation Heavenly Tao and studied carefully, hoping to create a sword formation that surpassed the 9 guides of Heavenly Sword one day. Unfortunately, Sky Sword 9 guides was too profound. Even Formation Heavenly Tao couldn't comprehend it. When the other disciples of Formation Heavenly Tao saw such a majestic sword presence, they couldn't withstand it and even died. But the moment Mu Yu entered the sword formation, his sword skills couldn't help but resonate with the sword presence left behind by Jianing Qinfeng. He started to uncontrollably perform 9 exquisite sword moves and entered an unprecedented state. Jianing Qinfeng at his peak was too terrifying. His sword essence wasn't something Mu Yu could withstand. Therefore, Mu Yu couldn't control himself and could only be guided. In the beginning, Mu Yu was unable to grasp the key points of the Heaven Sword 9 guide sword formation. That was until Little Shui and Long Tongue, these 2 weirdos, began to use the Wind Sun Heart linking formation to see Mu Yu's evolution of the Heaven Sword 9 guides in her heart. It was also the fight between the 2 that activated the true meaning of Jian Ying Chunfeng sword formation at Sky Sword Mount. This allowed Mu Yu to grasp the key points of the sword formation. He saw 9 swords dancing in the air. One sword turned into 9 moves, but each sword formed a world of its own. Sky Sword 9 Guides was no longer limited to simple moves. It started to become very flexible. All the heavenly swords guarded Muyu in all directions. They merged into the void and seemed to dissipate. However, every time Muyu took a step forward, a sword would appear around her like a shadow. His swords were hidden in the heaven and earth. The heaven and earth seemed to be his swords. In the sword formation of the 9 heavenly sword guides, his every movement was like a thunderstorm, as if there were thousands of sword chi sweeping over. The formation markings around him were no longer cryptic runes, but intricate sword shadows. Whenever his fingertips brushed across these sword shadow formation markings, a sharp sword force would appear out of thin air and slash down. In the Sky Sword 9 Guides sword formation, Muyu did not have a sword in his hand, but the sword force had already fused into his body, becoming a part of him. With a single thought, he could pull out a heavenly sword from every part of his body. So that's how it is. This is the sword formation of the 9 heaven sword guides. Muyu was completely immersed in the sword formation, feeling the brand new Sky Sword 9 Guides. In this sword formation, the swords had already become one with him. His swords were spread throughout the entire sword formation. Once someone entered the Sky Sword 9 Guide sword formation, they could be severely injured by Muyu's heavenly swords at any time. Unknowingly, 5 days and 5 nights had passed. Muyu was still immersed in the Sky Sword 9 Guide sword formation. The sword scars on the rocky mound were chaotic, but they did not lose their flamboyance. With an unruly aura, they enveloped Muyu within. On the morning of the 6th day, a ray of sunlight from the east suddenly shone on Muyu's body. Muyu suddenly opened his eyes. The cold light of life and death streaked across his eyes, then transformed into sword chi. His gaze reflected the rising sun. In his eyes, there seemed to be a figure practicing the Sky Sword 9 Guide sword technique under the rising sun. His aura had already begun to rise high, like a heavenly sword, showing off its sharpness, pointing straight to the clouds. Then he suddenly withdrew his aura back into his body. His eyes were as deep as the sea, without any ripples. Boom! All the rocks engraved with sword scars instantly turned to dust. They could not withstand the powerful sword aura of the Sky Sword 9 Guides. It was just that Jian Ing Chanfeng had purposely prevented the rocks from collapsing. Now, all the sword aura had been drawn by Muyu. These normal rocks could no longer maintain their form. They finally entered the fate that they should have been destroyed many years ago. Fate makes fools of people. I didn't think Jian Ing Chanfeng would still take his things back. With a soft sigh, the middle-aged man's figure slowly appeared beside Muyu. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the rocky mound that had become a flat land. The rocks on the mound were blown away by the wind, flying in the air. He could not help but feel pity. Greetings, Senior Formation Heavenly Tao. Muyu quickly stood up and bowed. Xiao Shuai and Long Tongue had already shrunk back to Muyu. How do you know who I am? Formation Heavenly Tao did not look at Muyu. It was as if he was talking to himself. The only person from the Array faction who can travel through the Sky Sword 9 Guide sword formation is Senior, Muyu said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. Formation Heavenly Tao nodded slightly. So, why did Jianing Chanfeng's disciple, the famous Muyu, come to the Formation Heavenly Tao? Did your master ask you to take back the Sky Sword 9 Guide sword formation? Even though her identity was exposed, Muyu remained indifferent. She didn't show any signs of panic. Formation Heavenly Tao's aura was very strong. He did not want to underestimate him. Senior, you must be joking. My master did not ask me to take back anything. I only found out that my master left the Sky Sword Mount here after joining the Formation Heavenly Tao. Muyu spoke the truth. Formation Heavenly Tao's eyes flashed with a strange light like the stars. After a long while, he said, "Back then, your master and I competed in formation skills here. I lost to the Sky Sword 9 Guides. He agreed to leave the Sky Sword 9 Guides on the rocks here for me to study. In exchange, I helped him set up the immortal confinement prison. Now, I'm afraid his cultivation has been mostly devoured by the immortal confinement prison. Muyu's heart jumped. He raised his head and looked at Formation Heavenly Tao. Don't be surprised. There were 6 people who set up the immortal confinement prison. Other than me, there was Siep Bulo, Deadwood Evergreen, Phantom Qingyu, your master himself, someone from the 3rd palace. The 5 of us became the guardians while your master was the eye of the formation. Formation Heavenly Tao pondered. It turned out that the guardian of the array was not the only title of the master of the threefold palace. Muyu had always thought that the guardian of the threefold palace was a unique title. Senior, why are you telling me this? Muyu asked in a low voice. The immortal confinement prison was a powerful formation of heaven and earth. It connected all humans in the Maoyun mountain range. Such a powerful formation required 5 people with outstanding formation skills. But Muyu didn't understand why Formation Heavenly Tao would suddenly tell him this. He already knew this. You coming here means Deadwood Evergreen is dead, right? Formation Heavenly Tao asked quietly. Muyu clenched his fists. Hatred surged from the bottom of his heart again. Deadwood Daddy's death was his greatest pain. He desperately wanted to avenge Deadwood Daddy. But he was so weak. He couldn't face the giant Stargate alone. I'm very sorry. His cultivation wasn't high, but his formation skills put me to shame. He's one of the few people worthy of my praise. Formation Heavenly Tao's tone carried a trace of regret. He turned around to look at Muyu. His eyes shone with starlight. Muyu felt his body sink into an endless starry sky. The black and white spirit power in his body began to circulate. Demon sealing formation of the 9th heavens. I knew Jianing and Chunfo would do this. Formation Heavenly Tao looked deeply at Muyu. Senior, can you help me break the formation? Muyu clenched his teeth. This was something that he had always dreamed of. As long as he could unlock the 9 heavens sealing demon formation, he would be able to use Spirit Lord Mu Yuming's life and death blink ability to revive Deadwood's father. I can, but you need to help the formation sect survive this calamity. Formation Heavenly Tao stared at Muyu. Muyu didn't understand. Formation Heavenly Tao's formation skills had reached an extraordinary level. But Muyu was only an out-of-body stage cultivator. He was insignificant in front of the Talisman Grandmaster, not to mention the giant Stargate behind him. Why would Formation Heavenly Tao ask him for help? I'm stupid. With Senior's formation skills, how could the Talisman Grandmaster have any advantage? Muyu said in a low voice. The lifespan of a cultivator is limited. I've reached the end of my lifespan. No matter how strong I am, who would be afraid of me after I die? Formation Heavenly Tao waved his hand. Suddenly, the scenery around him changed. Muyu was standing in a forest. Yellow leaves fell. He was old. Senior's lifespan has reached the end? Muyu was stunned, but he suddenly discovered an even stranger phenomenon. This forest was covered in strange formation patterns. They flowed in the air like water waves. Layers of waves rose and fell. When these patterns flowed through Muyu's body, he could clearly feel that they were very sticky. It was as if every cell in his body had slowed down. My lifespan reached its end 10 years ago. I've been waiting for your arrival. Formation Heavenly Tao sat cross-legged on the ground. Leaves had piled up on his shoulders. He sat there without moving for a long time. 10 years. Formation Heavenly Tao reached the end of his lifespan 10 years ago. Then how did he appear here? Senior, I don't really understand. Muyu shook his head. He only came here to find Formation Heavenly Tao to undo the 9 heavens demon sealing formation. If it wasn't for Deadwood's father's death, he wouldn't have come here. Could it be that Formation Heavenly Tao had predicted all of this? To put it simply, I used a special method to survive. I used the Against the Star Sky array and saw everything in the future. I paid the price for it. But it was also at that moment that I knew you could change the fate of the array sect. Formation Heavenly Tao stared at Muyu. Against the Star Sky array? What's that? Muyu had never heard of this array. Your understanding of arrays is still too narrow. Arrays can not only be used to attack, but also to protect the foundation of a sect. It can also be used to predict the fate of a person or a sect. By peering into the future, one can turn misfortune into fortune and avoid misfortune. Formation Heavenly Tao explained slowly. The Against the Star Sky array can predict a person's future? Muyu was shocked. If it could predict a person's future, then it could help that person avoid misfortune and make the most beneficial choice. 10 years ago, my lifespan had reached its end. I used the last of my life to predict the fate of the Array sect. I realized that no matter how the Array sect developed, it would be destroyed. The only turning point was you. I saw that you would come to find me because of this. So I thought of a way to survive and waited for you here. Me? I am only an out-of-body cultivator. What can I do? Muyu was very surprised. The Array divination showed that the Array sect was about to fall into a dangerous situation. The only person who can continue the Array sect's legacy must be someone who can break through the 8 trigrams, control fear, and climb the stairway to heaven with 8 steps. What I find laughable is that this person is not a true disciple of the Array sect. Formation Heavenly Tao laughed at himself. When Muyu first arrived at the Array sect and chose to break through the 8 trigrams, Formation Heavenly Tao already knew about Muyu's identity through the Against the Star Sky array. He just didn't say anything. Muyu didn't speak. Instead, he waited for Formation Heavenly Tao to finish. He knew that when he was breaking through the 4th trigram, he was breaking through the 8th trigram that no Array sect disciple had broken through for many years. This method of breaking through the 8 trigrams surprised me. I thought you would be able to break through all of them. I'm sure Deadwood Evergreen's death caused you a lot of pain. Formation Heavenly Tao said slowly. Senior, thank you for helping me stabilize Deadwood Daddy's soul. Muyu thanked from the bottom of his heart. The spirit anchoring formation is far more powerful than you can imagine. You will understand when you learn it completely one day. I only helped because I have a favor to ask of you. Formation Heavenly Tao didn't hide anything. But I still don't understand. There are so many powerful masters in the Array sect. They're all much stronger than me. Why me? Muyu didn't feel anything when he found out that he had broken through the 8th trigram. He didn't like the way it was done. Chapter 446. There are countless Array guardians in the Array sect, but the core guardian Array is actually the Array Hall. In the entire Array sect, I'm the only one who truly knows how to unleash the power of the Array Hall. However, I can't leave this place, so this responsibility falls on you. Array Heavenly Tao placed all his hopes on Muyu. However, this responsibility was too great. Muyu is only at the out-of-body stage. Even a Khanate Array Master could take care of him. How could he fight against the entire Talisman Grandmaster and Stargate? Senior, do you know who is a spy for the Talisman Grandmaster? Muyu asked. Array Heavenly Tao shook his head. I can see the entire Array sect, but I can't hear anything from the outside world. The Talisman Grandmaster is very cunning. They wouldn't choose to meet in the Array sect to discuss anything. The Array Hall interferes with my array. To be safe, I sealed the connection between the Array Hall and myself. Therefore, it was Zhuge Xiaosheng who told me when you use the 8 steps to the heavens. Then how do I control the Array Hall to fight against the Talisman Grandmaster? Muyu knew that if he wanted Array Heavenly Tao to help him break the 9 Heavens Demon Sealing Array, he had to help the Array sect get through this crisis. Actually, when Array Heavenly Tao helped Deadwood Daddy stabilize the soul-stabilizing array, Muyu had already decided to help the Array sect. Controlling the Array Hall requires 20 Khanate Array Masters to hold the fort. Then, you can command the entire Array Hall. As long as you control all the Array formations of the Array sect, you can resist the Talisman Grandmaster's invasion. The Array Hall is very powerful. It has abilities beyond your imagination. You will understand when the time comes. Our Array sect and Mu Qinghong, the only Khanate disciple, can form 20 people. 20 Khanate Array Masters? Muyu's heart sank. The Array faction only had 19 Xiantian Array Masters. Including the Xiantian disciple Mu Qinghong, There were exactly 20 people. However, Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian were from the Talisman faction. How could Mu Yu be at ease, letting them hold the fort? Senior, don't you know that Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian are spies from the Talisman Grandmaster? Although Mu Yu did not have any evidence to prove that the two of them were spies, he had to say it because it was a serious matter and he could not take the risk. They're spies? Lin Tiandao was shocked. He really didn't know about this. Mu Yu explained in detail how he followed the Talisman sect spy. Array Heavenly Dao's expression darkened. The divination said that you have a 40% chance of saving Array sect. So that's where the problem lies. Sigh, does the heavens want to destroy my Array sect? Without enough Xiantian Array masters to hold the fort, the Array Hall was unable to activate its defensive measures. Even the Array faction's only hope was destroyed. Mu Yu remained silent. There was nothing he could do about the fact that there was a spy among the Khanate Array masters of the Array faction. However, he suddenly thought of a method. This method was very risky, so he had to try it. Mu Yu pondered for a while and said, Senior, I'll do my best. However, I need you to teach me a powerful array technique. As long as you can help me, I may have a way to reverse this situation. What array technique? Array Heavenly Dao frowned. The Soul Array. It can control a Khanate Array Master's array technique. Mu Yu said word by word. He had the soul wood in his possession, so he could use it to control others. However, the controlled person's cultivation had to be lower than his, or it would be useless. If he couldn't use the soul wood to control Situ Yantian and Mu Qinghong, he would have to use the soul array instead. The array technique could amplify the effects of the soul wood and achieve a better control effect. He had once read through the array sect's records and found that the soul array was listed as a forbidden array by Array Heavenly Dao. All array sect disciples weren't allowed to learn it, and only Array Heavenly Dao knew how to set it up. If Mu Yu wanted to use the soul array to control more people, he would have to learn how to set it up. Now that there was a spy among the Khanate Array Masters, he had to control this spy and have him help hold the fort. Only then would he be able to control the Array Hall to resist the enemy. I understand what you mean. Array Heavenly Dao nodded silently. Do you know why I listed the soul array as a forbidden array? Because it goes against human logic? Mu Yu answered. That's only one of the reasons. The soul array is different from the Talisman sect's soul talisman. No matter how powerful the Talisman sect's soul talisman is, it can only control a person for 4 hours. After that, the talisman technique will lose its effect. Their talisman techniques are completely useless. However, the divine soul array was different. It could control anyone who entered the array. Once the person who entered the array was imprinted with a spiritual imprint, even if that person exited the array, they would still be controlled. As long as the soul array isn't destroyed, they won't be able to break free from the control. Array Heavenly Dao explained slowly. Mu Yu was slightly shocked. When he used the soul wood to control others, he couldn't do it as he pleased, nor could he control a person forever. However, the soul array could do it. This array is too scary. When your master and I created this array, we realized that it couldn't be used on Yumon, so we destroyed it. Array Heavenly Dao said plainly. Master and Senior created the soul array together. Mu Yu was shocked. He thought of the slave pill. It had similar effects as the soul array. That was also invented by Feng Haochen. Array Heavenly Dao nodded. Your master wanted to end the conflict between Yumon and the humans, so not only did he create the soul array with me, he also created the slave pill with Deadwood Evergreen. Unfortunately, it all failed. We discovered the problem. Both the soul array and the slave pill use the soul wood as the source. The soul wood is a plan after all. How could it be effective on Yumon? Wait, you're saying my master and Deadwood Daddy created the slave pill? Mu Yu was shocked again. Deadwood Daddy never told me this. Mu Yu suddenly felt a deep sense of hatred. Deadwood's father and his master had developed a slave pill for the sake of the human race. But in the end, someone had actually used the slave pill on the two of them. One was Gui Xinwei, the other was Tianbu Waiting. Because of the heaven and earth array, his master couldn't be controlled at all. However, Deadwood Daddy was only in the Jinan period. He couldn't resist Tianbu waiting at all. Deadwood Daddy was from the Pill Cauldron sect. The sect's alchemists must have gotten the slave pill recipe from him. Array Heavenly Dao looked deeply at Muyu and asked, "How did Deadwood Evergreen die?" Muyu clenched his fists. Tianbu waiting used the slave pill to control him. He killed an extreme immortal and was killed by the third layer palace. Array Heavenly Dao was silent for a long time before saying, "This is karma." He should have known the dangers of this pill. "This isn't karma. Deadwood Daddy and my master both had good intentions." Muyu was a bit angry. Array Heavenly Dao's words seemed to be accusing Deadwood of asking for his own death and not worthy of sympathy. However, this wasn't Deadwood Daddy's fault. He was only following Feng Haochen's plan to create the slave pill to control Yumon and end the conflict between humans and Yumon. You and my master also had good intentions when you created the solar ray. Isn't that right? Muyu said again. You have to understand one thing. Some heaven-defying things will go against the will of the heavens. Whether it was the slave pill or the solar ray, perhaps they had good intentions, but once they were misused, they would become a scourge. When I say karma, I don't mean that Deadwood Evergreen deserved to die. His death is inevitable, just like how I will die. Array Heavenly Dao said slowly. Muyu knew this already. Deadwood Daddy told him that the guardian of the third layer palace would kill Array Heavenly Dao as well in order to take control of the prison and stop Feng Haochen from recovering. Deadwood Evergreen was a very talented person. Although his personality wasn't very likable, and even I didn't like to talk to him, he was very powerful. To be able to reach the top in Pill Dao and Formation Dao is already very rare. His biggest mistake was helping your master, just like me. Muyu glared at Array Heavenly Dao, disliking his words more and more. Why was helping my master a mistake? Array Heavenly Dao seemed to have thought of something and had a self-deprecating smile. Your master helped the human race and crossed the bottom line of the third layer palace. He wanted to end the war between the humans and the Yumon forever. How could the third layer palace allow this to happen? Unfortunately, when I helped your master set up the immortal confinement prison, I didn't find out about the third layer palace's scheme. The immortal confinement prison is a formation of heaven and earth. When it was set up, its aura was connected to the guardians. Me, Deadwood Evergreen, Siep Bulow, and the third layer palace master all knew about the immortal confinement prison like the back of our hands. Just a few months ago, when Jian Ying and Chun Feng returned to the immortal confinement prison, we all felt something strange. We discovered that Jian Ying and Chun Feng actually had enough power to resist the corrosion of the immortal confinement prison. It was even very likely that he could break the immortal confinement prison and recover his cultivation. Muyu obviously knew about this because he followed Deadwood Daddy's instructions to find the underworld grass. He used the underworld grass, terrifying life force, to deal with the damage the immortal confinement prison had done to his master's Dantian. This was what we all wanted to see. Because the immortal confinement prison couldn't trap the Yumon, they had already escaped from the Mayan Mountains. The third layer continent was about to have a bloodbath. If Jianing Chunfeng could recover his cultivation at this time, it would be a huge blow to the Yumon. If it wasn't for Deadwood Evergreen's death, I wouldn't even have found out about the third layer palace's terrifying scheme. Array Heavenly Dao's tone became more and more serious with a hint of anger. After Deadwood Evergreen's death, something happened to the immortal confinement prison. It became unstable, and the prison's power was evenly split between me, Sieb Bulow, and the third layer palace's guardian. The third layer palace's guardian was the leader. It was also at that time that I understood that the guardian of the formation was an irreplaceable part of the immortal confining prison. The master of the three palaces was the guide of this formation. If Siebulo and I were to die, then the guardian of the three palaces would have complete control over this formation and your master. Well, you knew about this. Array Heavenly Dao only found out about this after Deadwood Daddy's death. Deadwood Daddy knew about this from the start and sent Muyu to find Array Heavenly Dao. The moment after Deadwood Evergreen's death, the immortal confinement prison connected the minds of all the Guardians. I saw the terrifying scheme of the threefold palace's guardians, and I also understood their true colors. I also knew that the threefold palace was the mastermind behind the war between the human race and the young demons. They only wanted to obtain powerful soul power to consolidate their position. Although I only saw it for a moment, that bit of information let Siebulo, and I know that the third layer palace's master was plotting to kill the two of us. Chapter 447. The dead leaves in the forest fell on Muyu's body, but Muyu's heart was faintly burning. It's right that withered tree, Evergreen, didn't tell you about the slave pill, because the pill formula was obtained by the guardian of the third palace. The guardian of the third palace isn't a good person. He used the slave pill to control a group of death warriors and used them to punish those who don't obey. Formation Heavenly Tao snorted. Not many people in the cultivation world knew about this. Everyone basically worshipped Threefold Palace as a god. However, the slave pill has its drawbacks. Even though it's more powerful than the God Soul Talisman, the pill contains God Soul wood. The wood will slowly erode a person's body and severely shorten their lifespan. Therefore, those who are controlled by the slave pill won't live long. The lucky ones will live for 10 years, while the unlucky ones will only live for 1 or 2 years. This isn't something they want to see. Muyu remembered that the God Soul would did have this effect. The God Soul would control its prey's consciousness to capture it, and then devour it to turn it into its own nutrients. If the slave pill used the God Soul wood as the main ingredient, it would have this drawback as well. He thought of Chingsong Taoist, who was controlled by the slave pill. Luckily, his master found a way to dissolve the power of the slave pill in Chingsong Taoist's body. Formation Heavenly Tao pondered for a moment and continued. The slave pill has its drawbacks, but the God Soul Array doesn't. I believe you understand what the God Soul Array means now. The Threefold Palace has its eyes on the God Soul Array? Muyu asked in a low voice. If the God Soul Array could perfectly control everyone who enters, the Threefold Palace wouldn't let go of this opportunity. Just like how I saw the memories of the Threefold Palace's master, he also knew about me, Jianing, and Chun Feng, creating the God Soul Array. The God Soul Array's prototype is the same as the God Soul Talisman. It has always had its drawbacks, but I secretly perfected it and made it perfect. I didn't tell anyone about this, but I know the Threefold Palace's guardian found out. Therefore, not only did he come to kill me, he also came for my Divine Soul Array. Muyu took a deep breath. If the masters of the three palaces knew how to set up the complete Divine Soul Array, no one in the world would be able to go against their will. They wouldn't even need to beat around the bush to create a war between the human race and the young demon race. They could just directly control the human race to kill each other. What do you plan to do with this array formation? Muyu suddenly regretted bringing up this array formation. This array formation should not have existed in this world. With the existence of the three-layered palaces, the Divine Soul Array would become a tool to help the evildoer do evil. I won't tell him the complete Divine Soul Array, but I'll teach you. The guardian of the Threefold Palace is also an array master. I don't know how much of my memories have been spied on by him, but if he relies on my memories to create a Divine Soul Array, he will use the Divine Soul Array to control everyone. I hope you can use your own array techniques to break the abacus of the three-layered palaces and break this array formation. Muyu nodded. The Divine Soul Array formation was known to have the same drawbacks as the Divine Soul Talisman and the Slave Pill. Only the array Heavenly Tao knew about the perfect Divine Soul Array and the guardian of the three-layered palaces. I won't let the three-layered palaces get away with their scheme. Muyu was never afraid of trouble. Ever since he found out that Deadwood Daddy was deliberately killed by the three-layered palaces, he and the three-layered palaces would not rest until one of them was dead. Your cultivation is too low. Even if I teach you how to set up the Divine Soul Array, you can't directly control people with higher cultivation than you. You need at least the help of a Khanate Array Master. I'll let Zhuge Xiaosheng help you. No need. I just need Master Lu's help. I trust him. Muyu said, Okay, I'll teach you how to set up the Divine Soul Array. But now you have to learn the array techniques of the array hall. The array techniques of the array hall are ever-changing. It gathers the most complete array techniques in the world. You'll need at least a year to learn it. The array hall was the foundation of the array sect. Muyu had already seen how magical it was. As long as the array hall was not broken, the array sect would not be destroyed. But there are only 20 days left until the talisman competition. There's not enough time. I don't know if I can learn anything from you. Muyu looked at the withered leaves dancing in the air. To learn array techniques that would have taken a year to master in 20 days was like gambling on luck. But since the array faction had already reached the point of life and death, he could only try. Time is not a problem. I'll teach you personally for a year. Let's see how much you can learn in a year. The array Heavenly Tao said after pondering for a while. Muyu raised his eyebrows and looked at the array Heavenly Tao in confusion. A year? If I learned for a year, the array sect would have become the talisman sect's territory. The talisman sect had been eyeing the array sect for a long time. They started planning 10 years ago. But because of the existence of the array Heavenly Tao, they didn't make a move. They chose to make a move now because the guardian of the third palace found out about the array Heavenly Tao's secret when Ku Mu Chongqing died. He passed this information to the talisman sect. Although the array Heavenly Tao wasn't from the immortal sect, his array techniques were still feared by the third palace. If he didn't know about the array Heavenly Tao's current situation, he wouldn't have helped the talisman sect. Do you know why this array is called the flowing water on fingertips? The array Heavenly Tao's eyes shone with a strange light. Why? The flowing water on fingertips means that time is like flowing water here. It has a form and can be controlled. The array Heavenly Tao said meaningfully, there are 25 days until the talisman competition. I can turn these 25 days into a year in the flowing water on fingertips. This array can change the flow of time in the outside world. Muyu was shocked. If the array Heavenly Tao could turn 25 days into a year, wouldn't that mean he could cultivate 10 times longer than others? The array Heavenly Tao looked proud. Many self-cultivators pursue immortality. There are two ways to achieve immortality. One is to have a perfect 5-elements body like your master. Unfortunately, there are too few people with this body. The other is to use your supreme cultivation to forcefully change the laws of time. You can transcend time and prevent your body from being corroded by time. I spent my entire life on this and finally used the supreme array Tao to break free from the shackles of time. Self-cultivators had a much longer lifespan than mortals. But no matter who it was, no matter how high their cultivation was or how strong their body was, time would slowly erode the balance of the 5 elements in their body. This would cause the god of death to descend upon them and take away their life. However, if someone could control time and allow themselves to transcend time and not be corroded by time, then they would be able to obtain a true body of eternal life. But time is also one of the ethereal Heavenly Tao. If you want to deceive the Heavenly Tao, you will have to pay a price. Just like me right now. Though I don't have to suffer the torment of life and death, I can only become a statue. I can no longer walk or participate in the game of time. Once I leave this place, time will erode me instantly. The array Heavenly Tao's face was full of regret. He used his supreme array Tao to communicate with the ethereal laws of time. However, time was too mysterious and he couldn't fully grasp it. Because of this, he had no choice but to live on in another way. The array Heavenly Tao extended his finger and gently drew across the air. Small ripples appeared on his fingertip. Many years ago, my lifespan came to an end. However, I've been using arrays to hang on to my last breath. This array is called the flowing water on fingertips. I spent my entire life to create it. Here, I can slow down my aging and alter the flow of time at will to escape the shackles of death. However, I cannot leave this place. Even back at the Heavenly Sword Mound, I placed a shadow there to drag you here. Escape the shackles of death? What a powerful array technique. Muyu was very curious about the flowing water on fingertips. Array Heavenly Tao created such a heaven-defying array to alter his own death and achieve immortality. Who would have thought an array technique could have such a powerful effect? Zhen Tiandao shook his head. You don't have to be so envious. Being in this formation is a living hell. It's more like living on the edge of death. I can't do anything but watch the bustling world outside operate. I can only be a bystander. Whether the array sect is destroyed or destroyed, I can't do anything. This way of obtaining immortality is too torturous. The flowing water on fingertips array gave array, heavenly, Tao, endless life, but also isolated him from the rest of the world. He couldn't cultivate, couldn't leave, and could only sigh on the side when the array sect was destroyed. It was as if he was trapped between life and death, unable to move. Muyu was silent. If he was given this method of immortality, he wouldn't want it either. This kind of living situation was more like a dead person. You can't experience the joy of life. It's like being trapped in a prison and facing the same thing every day. That kind of life is too lonely. Now that the array sect is on the brink of death, Zhuge Xiaosheng and the others can't turn the situation around. Only the array hall can protect the array sect. You'll have an extra year of time compared to others. I hope you can use this year well. Array Heavenly Tao stared at Muyu. He had no choice but to put the fate of the array sect in the hands of an outsider. Muyu thought about it for a while and raised his head. The flowing water on fingertips uses you as the eye of the array. Its true effect can only be seen on you. If you spend your time on me, what will happen to you? Death. Array Heavenly Tao said softly. The word death sounded so insignificant when it came out of his mouth. It was as if it was a simple thing without any burden. Muyu was a little startled. You created the flowing water on fingertips to escape death. Why are you willing to die? He really didn't understand this. Array Heavenly Tao saw through the laws of time and created an array for himself. This meant that Array Heavenly Tao was afraid of death. But now he was willing to die. Why was that? Many years ago, I used this method to obtain immortality. I was waiting for you so that you could save the array sect. After the array sect survives this ordeal, I will no longer need to lie to the heavens. I can walk into the embrace of death and peace. Array Heavenly Tao smiled. He wasn't afraid of death. He was waiting for Mu Yu's arrival. In order to prevent the destruction of the array sect, he hid in the flowing water array at his fingertips and lived like a walking corpse. This kind of living was actually quite painful, and death was a kind of release. I can agree to your conditions, but can you help me undo the array of the ninth heaven? If you die, how can I get what I want? Muyu didn't forget why he came here. No matter how dangerous the array sect was, it had nothing to do with him. He was only here for the array of the ninth heaven. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. I will teach you all the arrays I know. If you can learn them, you will know how to undo the array of the ninth heaven. When that happens, you won't need me. Right now, I can only move my upper body. I can't help you like this. Array Heavenly Tao shook his head. He had escaped death, so he couldn't do anything else. The flowing water on fingertips had sealed his cultivation. This was the best solution. They both needed each other's help, so they had to use this method. To Muyu, this was a win-win situation. Muyu was silent for a while. Okay, I will do my best to help the array sect survive this crisis. The threefold palace wanted the array sect to die. He wanted the array sect to survive. The key to the survival of the array sect was for Muyu to receive the inheritance of Array Heavenly Tao and control the array hall. He would be the last line of defense for the array sect. Chapter 448. The leaves in the forest continued to dance in the air, landing on formation Heavenly Tao and Muyu from time to time. However, the two of them ignored it. The array hall was the core of the entire array sect. It was set up by the array ancestor and the talisman ancestor when the array glyph sect was founded. After the array glyph sect split, formation Heavenly Tao rearranged all the formations in the array hall to prevent the talisman sect from spying on them. Although the talisman sect has been growing stronger in recent years and even has more connate talisman masters than us, they don't have talents like us. Therefore, they can't take down the array hall with their abilities. It's useless even if they have the help of the Triple Palace. Formation Heavenly Tao expressed his disdain for the talisman's sex actions. If he could control the Array Hall, he wouldn't be afraid even if the Triple Palace's guardian came personally. Senior, since you could foresee the destruction of the Array sect, why didn't you tell the sect master earlier and let him think of a way to avoid it? Asked Muyu. Formation Heavenly Tao shook his head. The Array sect has such a calamity in its life. It must endure it to continue living. The turning point of this calamity lies with you, not anyone else in the Array sect. If we don't survive this calamity, it will come back to haunt the Array sect sooner or later. If I told Zhuge Shaosheng to avoid the talisman sect scheme this time, I would have missed you. When the next calamity befalls the Array sect, I won't have the ability to find someone else to help the Array sect. Therefore, I chose to keep the Array sect's calamity a secret. I didn't even tell Zhuge Shaosheng. The karma of the Heavenly Tao was unavoidable. The Array sect had to go through this calamity to continue living. Formation Heavenly Tao, who had peeked into the laws of heaven and earth, knew this all too well. Besides, Muyu is the disciple of Jian Ing Chunfeng and Deadwood Evergreen. This was one of the reasons why Formation Heavenly Tao had chosen him. Formation Heavenly Tao couldn't stand up. The only thing he could move was his hands. The flowing water array at his fingertips was filled with ripple-like array patterns. Under the guidance of the Array Heavenly Tao, these array patterns quickly enveloped Muyu. Muyu felt as if he had stepped into a new world. The scenery around him began to change dramatically. He could even clearly see the movement of the wind blowing through the treetops and the trajectory of the leaves. As long as he wanted to, he could even make everything stop. Let's begin. The voice of the Heavenly Array Tao echoed in Muyu's mind. It was so clear that Muyu couldn't help but tremble. A pair of deep and boundless eyes appeared before him. This pair of eyes seemed to contain all things in the world. Many rays of light flashed in his eyes, and each ray of light was like a small world. It was overwhelming. Then, a ray of light as bright as a star shot into Muyu's mind from the pair of eyes. Thousands of mysterious array patterns instantly filled Muyu's mind. Each pattern was a mysterious array technique. These array techniques were all-encompassing and contained the knowledge of the Array Heavenly Tao. It was so vast that one couldn't see the end of it. The Divine Soul Array Yuan is here. If you can successfully take over the Array Palace, you can even use it to control everyone in the Array sect, including the sect leader, Zhuge Shaosheng. Your cultivation is still lacking, so you must be careful when using the Divine Soul Array. I know that you have Spirit Lord Yu Meng's sacred item, which can transform into countless Divine Soul trees. However, if you use these Divine Soul trees on everyone, your mental strength will not be able to withstand it. So, don't try to control everyone. The Array Heavenly Tao pointed his finger again, and a complex array pattern entered Muyu's mind. This was the complete array of the Divine Soul Array. Using this array, the power of the Divine Soul trees could be distributed to everyone. As long as someone entered the array, they would be controlled by Muyu. I understand. I just want to control Situ, Yang Tian, and Mu Chenghong. Muyu didn't plan to control everyone. As long as he controlled Situ, Yang Tian, and Mu Chenghong, he could basically guarantee that he could successfully take over the Array Palace. However, Muyu suddenly hesitated. He understood why his master didn't teach him array techniques. If Mu Yumeng learned the Divine Soul Array, he would be invincible on the battlefield. The Divine Soul trees could be avoided, but the complete Divine Soul Array was different. Its power was too strong. However, Muyu quickly suppressed his hesitation. This war was no longer a simple race war. It was a tool for insidious villains. The only thing he could do was use array techniques to stop this war. The rest will depend on your luck. Learn as much as you can from me in a year. The Array Heavenly Tao's voice gradually weakened. It was as if he was blown further and further away by the wind until he disappeared. Complex and mysterious array patterns flashed past Muyu's eyes. There were so many array techniques to learn that he even felt that a year's time was rather tight. However, at this moment, Muyu had completely forgotten the passage of time. He had seen so many array techniques that he was completely engrossed in them. He absorbed the essence of the array Tao. The array, heavenly Tao, looked at Muyu, who was enveloped by the ripples of time. His expression remained calm. Muyu's talent was in line with his expectations. He was indeed qualified to receive his inheritance. The aura on his body slowly weakened. If he used the law of time on others, he would be in imminent danger. I hope I can last until then. The array, heavenly Tao, sighed. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 days had passed in the outside world. However, a year had passed in the flowing water. The array, heavenly Tao, had already told the story of Muyu to Zhuge Shaosheng. All the previous teachers knew that Muyu was currently learning array techniques from the array, heavenly Tao, in the Forbidden Forest. Nobody dared to disturb them. The date of the talisman competition was getting closer and closer. The entire array sect began to treat this matter seriously. Every year, the competition would be held in different sections. This year, it was the array sect's turn to hold it. Both sects attached great importance to the talisman formation competition because it was a good opportunity to prove whether the talisman Tao or the array Tao was superior. The competition was divided into 9 rounds. It was a competition between Hot-Eon, Zhongqian, and Khanate disciples. The winner would be the one who defeated the opponent using array techniques against talisman techniques. There were a total of 9 rounds. The sect that won the most rounds would be the winner. The competition had rules regarding cultivation levels. The Hot-Eon disciples participating in the competition must not exceed the Jindan period. The Zhongtian disciples must not exceed the Yuanying period, and the Khanate disciples must not exceed the out-of-body period. However, because there were always new disciples joining the sect, most of the new disciples' cultivation levels were very low. Even Khanate disciples or Zhongtian disciples could be at the Jindan period. Therefore, as long as this rule was used reasonably, one could send out more talented Zhongtian disciple from the Jindan period to represent the Hot-Eon disciples. One could also send out Khanate disciples from the Yuanying period to represent the Zhongtian disciples. This was an unspoken rule of the talisman competition. In other words, the talisman competition was more like a competition between Jindan stage cultivators, Yuanying stage cultivators, out-of-body stage cultivators, out-of-body stage cultivators, and out-of-body stage cultivators. In the array hall, the 19 Khanate array masters sat upright. They were all discussing who would be participating in the competition. When it came to Feng Mu, who had been in the limelight recently, everyone had different opinions. The Khanate array masters of the array faction had a huge disagreement on who to choose because they did not know which level to place the talented Feng Mu in the competition. Zhuge Shaosheng pondered for a while and said, Feng Mu is now in seclusion with the Patriarch. His appearance means that our victory over the Talisman Grandmaster is just around the corner. What kind of disciple do you think Feng Mu should participate in the competition this year? Feng Mu's cultivation level was only at the Jindan period. This was known to all. He already had the talent of a Khanate disciple, but his actual identity was still that of a Zhongtian disciple. Moreover, his cultivation level met the requirements of a Hot-Eon disciple. Therefore, he could participate in any level of disciple. The saying 100 pairs refer to people like him. Since Feng Mu was able to escape from the Talisman Grandmaster, Mo Ziming, with his Jindan period cultivation level and talisman skills, we can let him participate as a Zhongtian disciple. He should have a chance of winning. Master Xia said. She thought very highly of Feng Mu. Since even the Talisman Grandmaster, Mo Ziming, couldn't do anything to Feng Mu, then it would be even more impossible for the Talisman Grandmaster to defeat him. She even had a little extravagant hope that Feng Mu could defeat the Talisman Grandmaster with his superb array skills. Don't joke about his Jindan period cultivation. No matter how good his talent and array skills is, the gap in cultivation level can't be made up for. The fact that he escaped from Mo Ziming's pursuit means that he was lucky, but it doesn't mean that he can really fight a nascent Soul Grandmaster head-on. Letting him participate in the Hot-Eon disciple competition is the best choice. Don't you think so, Master Lu? Situ Yang Tian glanced at Master Lu. I agree with Situ Yang Tian. What Situ Yang Tian didn't expect was that Master Lu surprisingly didn't refute his words. Instead, he agreed. Master Lu continued. Feng Mu's cultivation level is only at the Jindan period. We can't let him participate in the Zhongtian disciple competition. The Talisman Grandmaster's disciples are all at the nascent soul stage. They won't let Feng Mu grow up. If Feng Mu is seriously injured by the Talisman Grandmaster and suffers some hidden disease, wouldn't it ruin his future? At first, Master Lu really hoped that Mu Yu could participate in the Zhongtian disciple competition. However, since Mu Yu was almost killed by Mo Ziming when he was out in the field, he dispelled the idea of letting Mu Yu participate in this year's array talisman competition. The Talisman Grandmaster had lost for so many years. It didn't matter if they lost again this year. However, if something happened to Feng Mu because of the array talisman competition, it would be a big loss for a small gain. Situ Yang Tian looked at Master Lu. His eyes flickered and no one knew what he was thinking. It seems that we can only let Feng Mu participate in the Houtian disciple competition. If he participates in the competition between Houtian disciples, he will at least win. Master Redwater said, although Mu Yu was a Zhongtian disciple, because his cultivation level was only at the Jindan period, there was no problem for him to participate in the Houtian disciple competition. In order to win, it didn't matter if he played a little tricks. I'm most worried that the people from the Talisman sect will come up with some scheme to frame Feng Mu. In my opinion, we should hide him this year and not let him participate in the competition. When Feng Mu has sufficient cultivation next year, he can participate in the Talisman formation competition. He will definitely be able to hold his head high. Another senior Zhang said. The other masters also echoed and agreed with Master Zhang's words. Now Feng Mu had become a treasure of the Talisman Grandmaster. Because Feng Mu's cultivation level was not enough, everyone didn't want him to take the risk to participate in the array talisman competition. Zhuge Xiaosheng nodded slightly and pondered for a while. How about this? We will wait for Feng Mu to come back from the ancestor's place and ask him if he wants to participate in the Houtian disciple competition. If he doesn't want to, then forget it and let him participate next year. From the beginning to the end, no one wanted to let Mu Yu participate in the Houtian disciple competition. Chapter 449. Feng Mu, you've come out of seclusion? Master Lu was pleasantly surprised. More than 20 days ago, Mu Yu had suddenly disappeared for no reason. He thought it was an accident. Later, he learned from Zhuge Xiaosheng that the Formation Grandmaster had taken Feng Mu away. Yes, I've come out of seclusion. Thank you for your concern, Master Lu. Mu Yu bowed to Master Lu and then bowed to the other masters. Boy, did you just say that you want to participate in the competition among Kane disciples? Situ Yang Tian sneered. Humph, you're overestimating yourself. Do you want to die? Situ Yang Tian still had that hateful look on his face. Others praised Mu Yu's talent, but he was the only one who always mocked and ridiculed him. Mu Yu gazed at Situ Yang Tian in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. He said without the slightest fear, Master Situ, I'm not overestimating myself. It's just that I've fought Mo Ziming and have a rough understanding of the strength of the Talisman sect Xiantian disciples. That's why I dared to make this decision. Nonsense. I object. Master Lu shook his head. Mo Ziming is the 71st Supreme Immortal on the Supreme Immortal list. You're lucky to have escaped death. Why do you still want to take the risk? Zhuge Xiaosheng also said, Feng Mu, I know your talent is outstanding and you've been recognized by the Grandmaster, but you have to act according to your ability. Junior brother Lu is right. You're no match for Mo Ziming. Besides, the most powerful Khanate disciple in Talisman sect isn't Mo Ziming, but Ling Zheng, the 67th Supreme Immortal. Last year, Ling Zheng lost to Mu Qinghong in the Talisman competition, but this year his ranking is higher than Mu Qinghong's. During the competition, we don't even know who our opponent is. If you meet him, I'm afraid you'll be in trouble. Mu Qinghong was now 70th on the Supreme Immortal list. Ling Zheng had lost to Mu Qinghong in the talisman competition last year, but this year, he had far surpassed him. This was enough to show that Ling Zheng's talisman skills had improved by leaps and bounds in this year, leaving Mu Qinghong 3 ranks behind. Feng Mu, I believe that you will surpass them one day. But before you have the strength, you must learn to be patient and not be too flamboyant. You can participate in the Houtian Disciple competition, but you absolutely cannot participate in the Xiantian Disciple competition. Master Lu solemnly said. No one was optimistic about Mu Yu, because Mu Yu only had the strength of the Jindan period. No matter how good his array skills were, it was impossible to make up for the difference of 2 major realms. Actually, Mu Yu could reveal his true cultivation level now, because the formation Heavenly Tao had already seen through his identity. It didn't matter even if he admitted that he was Jian Ying's disciple. At most, these array masters from the array faction would be so shocked that their jaws would drop. They wouldn't do anything to Mu Yu. However, Mu Yu had his own plans. He did not intend to alert the enemy. If he wanted to help the array faction through this crisis, he had to use the help of the 2 spies, Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian. Without them, the array hall wouldn't be able to open, and the array faction's last line of defense wouldn't be able to hold. Most importantly, by hiding his cultivation level, he could catch them off guard and attack them when they least expect it. I understand everyone's good intentions, but I have a message from the Patriarch. Please listen to it. Mu Yu gently flicked his finger, and a white token appeared in his hand. This white token shone with a pure white brilliance. Mysterious golden runes flowed on it from time to time. The patterns on it were strange and varied. They were as light as water ripples. There was only one word written on the token, array. This word was majestic and carried with it a supreme understanding of array Tao. It made the hearts of all the array masters tremble. Ancestral token, Zhuge, Xiaosheng exclaimed. All the array masters quickly stood up and stared at the white token in disbelief. The ancestral token was the identity of the array Heavenly Tao. Seeing it was like seeing the array Heavenly Tao himself. It represented the will of the array Heavenly Tao. The ancestral token shook slightly and ripples spread out in the air. Then, the image of the array Heavenly Tao appeared from the token. His white robe and black hair fluttered in the wind. He stood with his hands behind his back and scanned everyone present. His aura of disdain spread out. Greetings, Patriarch. The moment the 19 array masters saw the image of the array Heavenly Tao, they were all extremely respectful. Then, they all knelt down and kowtowed to their Patriarch. It's just an image. Is there a need for such a big bow? Mu Yu rubbed his nose. He was standing beside the ancestral token, so these people were basically kneeling to him. He felt a little embarrassed. However, in order not to disturb the solemn atmosphere, he straightened his back and looked at everyone seriously. Wow, they're all kneeling. Can I ask you to rise? Little Shuai popped his head out and asked secretly. No. Mu Yu pushed Little Shuai's head back. This little guy just loved to take advantage of others. The array Heavenly Tao nodded faintly and said simply, Feng Mu's words represent my will. Whatever he wants to do, you just need to help him. He didn't say much, and his voice wasn't loud, but echoed clearly in the entire array palace. It seemed to have an indescribable penetrating power and irresistible authority. All the array masters were in awe. Yes, Patriarch. The 19 array masters responded in unison. The array Heavenly Tao was their spiritual pillar. They didn't dare to go against his words. The array Heavenly Tao's image flashed again and disappeared from the array palace. Only then did Zhuge, Xiaosheng, and the others stand up and look at each other. They didn't expect Mu Yu to receive the ancestral token of the array Heavenly Tao. Zhuge, Xiaosheng, and the others sat down again. The way they looked at Mu Yu also changed. In the past, the array Heavenly Tao had never given the token to anyone. But Mu Yu had only followed the array Heavenly Tao for a few days and received the token. This made them very envious. Zhuge, Xiaosheng sighed softly. Feng Mu, since the ancestral master has said so, we will respect your choice. but I hope you can think twice before you act. The Talisman sect is very ruthless in the array talisman competition. They won't show any mercy. Muyu nodded. I know it's dangerous, but I know what I'm doing. Please don't worry. Seeing Muyu's insistence, no one said anything else. Master Lu's face was full of anxiety. He couldn't sit still any longer. He wanted to find Feng Mu and see if he could change his mind. Now that Muyu's selection was confirmed, the remaining spots were much easier to handle. There was no shortage of culmination disciples and postnatal disciples, but it was different for Khanate disciples. Before Muyu came, apart from Mu Qinghong, 2 out-of-body stage array masters were sent to replace the Khanate disciples. Muyu knew both of them. One was Song Qingyu, and the other was Ma Mingxuan. Although they were out-of-body stage cultivators, their understanding of array Dao was only at the level of culmination disciples. They were far from the Khanate disciples of the Talisman sect. Therefore, they were defeated every year. This year, Muyu insisted on taking one of the spots. Everyone was more worried about him than they were looking forward to it. No one thought that Muyu could win against the 3 supreme immortals of the Talisman sect. Instead, they were worried about what would happen if Muyu was crippled. Given the Talisman sect style, they would definitely cripple Feng Mu and destroy his future array Dao. They would destroy the hope of the array Heavenly Dao. But if these people knew Muyu's true cultivation, it would be a headache. We still don't know who will cripple who. Muyu turned and left the array hall. Others only knew that he had been in seclusion for half a month in the Forbidden Forest, but only he knew how long he had been in there. Although he had been learning for a year, Muyu had not fully understood many of the array Dao's formations. He only learned some practical ones under the advice of array Heavenly Dao. He still had to figure out the rest by himself. Among all the array Dao, the one he relied on the most was the Sky Sword 9 Guides array Dao left behind by his master. The sword array was irreplaceable. He looked at the stairs in front of the array hall. There was nothing special about these stairs. Only when the array was activated would they turn into the 8 trigrams heavenly stairs. Array Heavenly Dao was the same as him. He had passed the array hall's heavenly stairs in 8 steps. He was one of the few geniuses of the array sect. Thinking about array Heavenly Dao, Muyu felt a sense of melancholy. Most likely, none of the Khanate array masters in the array sect knew that their respected ancestor, array Heavenly Dao, was not in a good state. Muyu thought about the experience of the past 20 days. Especially after he understood what the flowing water on fingertips array Heavenly Dao was, he finally understood what kind of genius array Heavenly Dao was. Array Heavenly Dao used his lifetime to create the flowing water on fingertips array Heavenly Dao. It was not as simple as simply stopping death. The reason why it was called the flowing water on fingertips array Heavenly Dao was because time flowed like water in this array. It was tangible and could be controlled. This could be said to be the greatest array to date. It was also the array that Muyu found the most unbelievable. In the flowing water on fingertips array, Heavenly Dao used his own vital essence to forcefully change the flow of time. Muyu looked like he had only spent 20 days in there. But in reality, an entire year had passed. Last time, Mu Chenghong used an illusion array on Muyu. It looked like more than 2 hours had passed, but it was only an instant. It was an illusion array in one's mind. It did not actually change time. For example, the array tablet used to test the culmination disciples was just an illusion array. Everything actually happened in Muyu's mind. It was an illusion array. However, the flowing water on fingertips array Heavenly Dao was not an illusion array. It actually changed time. Array Heavenly Dao used a huge amount of spiritual energy to change the laws of time and bought Muyu a year's time. Being able to change the laws of time was heaven-defying. It had already crossed the bottom line of the Heavenly Dao. Therefore, it had to pay a heavy price. Just like the star overturning sky formation, Array Heavenly Dao had to bear the consequences. Now, not only was Array Heavenly Dao unable to move, he had even fallen into an unconscious state. The backlash from the flowing water on fingertips array Heavenly Dao caused him to fall into a deep sleep. Muyu had no idea when he would wake up. Chapter 450. Formation Heavenly Tao gave him 2 ways to break the 9 heavens sealing demon formation. The first way was to reach the tribulation stage and use one's powerful spiritual energy to break the formation directly. The formation Heavenly Tao Palace had great power. This was also one of the reasons why Muyu had to learn how to control it. However, without reaching the tribulation stage, he wouldn't be able to use the formation Heavenly Sealing Demon Formation. This meant that he still had a long way to go before he could break the formation. The other way was to kill. It was the same method as Mu Yumeng and Spirit Lord Gomong. The killing aura would break the balance of the 5 elements in the 9 heavens sealing demon formation. This would cause the formation to break by itself. Now that he knew how to break the 9 heavens sealing demon formation, he wasn't happy. He already knew how to use the formation techniques needed to break the 9 heavens sealing demon formation. However, he couldn't use them with his current cultivation. This put him in a dilemma. Killing was obviously the easiest way. It was also the method that Muyu didn't like. Muyu, what do you plan to do? Little Shuai asked. Let's kill. It can be simpler, Long Tongue said. Formation Heavenly Tao told Muyu the formation principles. Muyu also knew that killing was the formation's most direct weakness. However, would Deadwood Daddy agree to kill more people to save one person? No matter what I choose, I will kill Tian Bushi first. Muyu's eyes were cold. What Tian Buwei had done was unforgivable in Muyu's eyes. Muyu would definitely make him pay the price. Anyway, let's deal with the formation talisman competition first. The Sanchong Palace is supporting the Talisman Grandmaster. We can't let them have too much fun, Long Tongue said. Muyu nodded. If he killed Tian Bushi, the entire Stargate wouldn't let him go. At that time, he would have to face the revenge of the entire Stargate. With the power of Stargate, it would be easy for them to hire some powerful extreme immortals to kill him. Only by increasing his cultivation could he ensure his own safety. If he reached the tribulation stage, not only could he remove the 9 heavens sealing demon formation and find a way to resurrect Deadwood Daddy, but he could also deal with all the extreme immortals who came to challenge him. Unfortunately, it wasn't that easy to reach the crossing calamity stage. Muyu arrived at the highest peak of the Array faction. Previously, he had only come here through Mu Chenghong's illusion technique and had not personally come here. Now that he was at the top of the mountain, he could once again look down upon the entire Array sect. The feeling of being able to see the entire Array sect made his heart calm down. This was indeed a good place for him to calm down and think about how to deal with the catastrophe of the Array faction. The current him was no longer the same as before. He was no longer the new Zhongtian disciple, but he still felt an unprecedented amount of pressure. The Array faction had the most powerful and exquisite Array Hall, and even had a powerful Xiantian Array Master in charge. However, the person who had fate with the Array Hall was an outsider like him. Even Zhuge Xiaosheng couldn't fully control the Array Hall. If he wanted to lead the Array faction to deal with the wolves, tigers, and leopards, he could only rely on Muyu. The sun was very bright, and it was incomparably warm. The wind at the top of the mountain blew at Muyu's clothes, allowing Muyu to relax. What would come, and all he could do was calmly deal with it. I knew you would definitely come here personally. Mu Qinghong's voice came from the side. A gust of wind blew past, and he was already sitting on the stone. Just like the 2 people in the illusion, they sat in their respective positions. Muyu was silent. The young man in front of him was the only Xiantian disciple of the Array faction, but he was a spy sent by the Talisman faction. Just like what Mu Qinghong said, they would eventually stand on opposite sides. He didn't know why, but he always felt that Mu Qinghong wasn't such a simple person. He seemed to have something that he couldn't say, and was doing things that he didn't like to do. I like the Array faction, Mu Qinghong said again. His tone was so sincere, without any hypocrisy. It was a simple like. It had nothing to do with the prejudice between sex, and it had nothing to do with identity. It was just pure like. If a place you like is trampled and destroyed one day, what will you do? Muyu didn't have much feelings for this place. To him, this place was just a kind of responsibility, a responsibility that he had to bear when he faced the heavenly Tao. Therefore, he chose to protect this place. However, looking at such a vast array faction, he didn't have any thoughts of disgust. If he didn't dislike it, maybe he liked it? Muyu thought in his heart. Mu Qinghong didn't look at Muyu. Instead, he opened his arms like before, as if he was hugging the array faction. He was incomparably comfortable. Many times, we can't say what will happen, but I'd rather leave the most complete side of it in my memories forever. Leave in his memories, yes. When a beautiful place is destroyed, it will naturally remain in his memories forever. Leave in your memories, so you won't protect it, right? Muyu stared at Mu Qinghong. In his mind, Mu Qinghong didn't seem like a heinous person. He seemed more like someone who had no choice. However, a spy was still a spy. Muyu didn't want to show him mercy, but he couldn't fall out with him right now. For the sake of the array faction, Muyu had to find a way to control this young man. There are many ways to leave it in your memories. The way you speak of may not be the same as the way I think. Mu Qinghong sighed softly. His gaze was filled with endless melancholy, like a sentimental and elegant scholar. The sunlight shone down on him so smoothly, but it made him appear lonely. I will protect this place, Muyu said softly. The Tao of Array faction passed down all its knowledge to him, allowing him to get what he wanted. It also helped Muyu protect Deadwood Daddy's soul. In return, Muyu will help the Tao of Array faction protect this place. Mu Qinghong looked at Muyu in surprise. The melancholy in his eyes dissipated and was replaced by a bright light. It was as if someone had lit up a lamp in his eyes. He looked at Muyu, and Muyu looked back at him. The two of them were calm, and neither of them could read anything from the other's eyes. I understand. Mu Qinghong seemed to have changed into a different person. He was in high spirits and pointed his finger in the air. Array patterns flowed around his fingertip. He then said, "Junior brother, when you have time, you should go take a look at the third array tablet. It's different from the previous two." The third array tablet? Ever since Muyu climbed the stairway with the 8 steps to the heavens, no one asked him to break the third array tablet and become a true Kane disciple, because there was no need. If someone who climbed the stairway with 8 steps wasn't considered a Kane disciple, then who was? The array tablet was only used to test Zhong Tian disciples who wanted to break through their own limits, not those who were already Kane disciples. Muyu shook his head. I don't need to use the array tablet to prove my identity as a Kane disciple. I'm a Kane disciple. Pausing, as if to emphasize something, he continued. Just like you, I am a Kane disciple of the array faction. Mu Qinghong became lost again. His eyes became blurred again. Looking at the mountains and rivers of the array faction, he sighed softly. Unfortunately, no matter how beautiful something is, it will disappear in the river of time. Mu Qinghong stared at the sky in a daze. Muyu did not refute. Mu Qinghong had already made his decision. In Mu Qinghong's view, even if Muyu sensed something, the array faction would not be able to escape the fate of destruction. A Jindan period Khanate disciple would not be able to change the situation. A Jindan period Khanate disciple would not be able to change anything. Mu Qinghong stood up and repeated with a smile. Let's go and take a look. His words were very simple, but they were mixed with many inexplicable meanings. But when Muyu wanted to think about it carefully, she couldn't say why. The array patterns around Mu Qinghong surged, wrapping his figure in the array patterns. He looked at Muyu again, a strange light in his eyes. He seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything. Then his figure slowly disappeared from the peak, leaving only Muyu to face the wind and ponder. What kind of person are you? Muyu sighed in his heart. Mu Qinghong grew up in the array faction. He learned the array techniques of the array faction and was influenced by the culture of the array faction. People's hearts were made of flesh. Mu Qinghong also liked the place where he grew up, but he was a member of the Talisman sect. The Talisman sect wanted him to personally destroy this familiar sect, which was also a choice for him. His identity required him to obey the orders of the Talisman sect. From a standpoint of the sect, he could only choose the talisman sect and destroy this place with his own hands. Why do you want me to see the third array tablet? Muyu did not understand. What was Mu Qinghong thinking? Could it be that he wanted to use the array tablet to attack him? But that was impossible. When the array tablet was broken, no one was allowed to go near it. Only those who had broken the array tablet were qualified to go near it. Mu Qinghong could not have done anything to the array tablet. So what was the purpose of Mu Qinghong asking him to see the array tablet? Muyu's fingers moved slightly. Now, he did not need to use the connate array foundation to be able to freely release and withdraw array techniques. He had reached a state of flowing water like Mu Qinghong. More than 20 days and a year were two different concepts. The array Heavenly Tao did not teach Muyu many advanced array techniques. What it taught Muyu was the understanding of array Tao. After understanding the essence of array Tao, you no longer felt awkward when learning array techniques. All array techniques became clear and transparent in front of him. However, Muyu did not want to show it. He had to leave surprises for his enemies. As the array patterns surged, Muyu disappeared from the peak. When he reappeared, he was already outside the advancement hall. Once, he had broken the first array tablet here, but he was willing to be a nobody. Many people were stifled. Later on, he stood out to admit it with his cultivation during the Jindan period. He was subjected to countless mockery and ridicule. In the end, he used his strength to slap everyone's face. Since then, he had already established his talent. Breaking the third array tablet was not an option. But why did Mu Qinghong want him to break the third array tablet? Did he just want to know if Muyu had the ability to become a connate disciple of the array sect? He did not want to prove anything. Breaking the third array tablet could not stop the talisman sect's conspiracy, nor could it prevent the destruction of the array sect. However, when Muyu recalled Mu Qinghong's hesitant look, he could not help but be curious. What was the third array tablet hiding? Muyu walked towards the advancement hall. No matter what Mu Qinghong's conspiracy was, no matter what the third array tablet was hiding, he had to take a look. Chapter 451. The advancement hall was enveloped by a mystical formation. Here, it was as if one was situated in the boundless starry sky of the universe. It was tranquil and mysterious. One could clearly see all the stars gently rotating around them. One could also see a star gradually lighting up. From time to time, one could even see a meteor streaking across the sky. One could even see a star being born. When Muyu first came to the advancement hall, he was also amazed by the mystical star array formations here. But now that he saw the star array formations in the sky again, he felt that it was so simple. He could even easily destroy this star array formation or even make some changes to it to make it shine brighter. But at this moment, he was not the only one in the advancement hall. At some point, Master Lu had summoned all the Zhongtian disciples to the advancement hall, as if to announce something. Muyu was no longer a Zhongtian disciple, so he did not need to come here. When Muyu came in, Master Lu was the first to see him, and he immediately stopped his speech. All the Zhongtian disciples also turned their heads to look at Muyu. It's Feng Mu. What's he doing here? Isn't he a Xiantian disciple now? Why is he still here? I heard that a while ago, he was received by the Heavenly Array sect founder and went to the Forbidden Forest. He went to the Forbidden Forest? Heavens! What good luck! Whispers spread among the Zhongtian disciples, and everyone was talking about Muyu's arrival. The moment Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai saw Muyu, their faces darkened. Ever since the Seal sect's Mo Ziming failed to assassinate Muyu, they had not found another chance to do anything to Muyu. However, Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai were not discouraged because they understood that with just Feng Mu, it was impossible to turn the tide. The Array sect's destruction was irreversible. Once the Seal sect took over the Array sect, Feng Mu would also die. Feng Mu, you came at the right time. Everyone, cheer up. Learn from Feng Mu. This time, Feng Mu has already decided to represent our Array sect in the Array formation competition. His fearless attitude is exactly what you all lack. Feng Mu was the latest to join, but he is much stronger than all of you. All of you have to do your best in the talisman competition 3 days later. Regardless of whether or not you participated in the talisman competition, the spirit of the Array faction cannot be lost. You mustn't show any weakness in front of the talisman grandmaster. Do you understand? Master Lu said to everyone in a clear voice. Yes, this disciple will bear this in mind. After all the disciples heard Master Lu's words, they felt a burst of surprise. Many people felt that it was inconceivable. Feng Mu wants to participate in the talisman competition among Xiantian disciples. Although I admit that he is very talented, he is only at the cultivation level of the Jindan period. How can he be compared to the connate disciples of the talisman sect? Exactly. The 3 innate realm disciples of the talisman sect are all on the supreme immortal leaderboard. They're all at the out-of-body stage. Can Feng Mu's cultivation during the Jindan period be compared with him? Everyone felt that Feng Mu had really gone mad. No matter how talented he was, it was no different from throwing an egg against a talisman grandmaster when he was only at the gold core stage. He was overestimating himself. Was Feng Mu seeking death? Quiet. Feng Mu is participating in the talisman competition among Xiantian disciples. The most important thing is not winning or losing, but the spirit to challenge the strong. What are you talking about? If you don't have the heart to challenge the strong, how can you go further in the Array Dao? Master Lu reprimanded. No one dared to speak again. They were all secretly looking at Mu Yu, their faces full of doubts. As far as they were concerned, Feng Mu was just trying to show off. Master Lu asked gently, Feng Mu, today I gathered all the Zhongtian disciples to let them know what to pay attention to in the talisman competition 3 days later. What business do you have here? Mu Yu swept his gaze over the people around him, and a thought suddenly struck him. He suddenly thought of something. The talisman sect had sent a total of 57 spies at the level of Zhongtian disciples, and 16 of them had already become Zhongtian array masters. In other words, 41 of the 300-plus Zhongtian disciples present were spies. If he could set up a huge soul array here and control all the Zhongtian disciples, wouldn't he be able to catch them all in one fell swoop? Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai both had the god vanquishing talisman in their bodies, so they could not be controlled. At that time, it would be fine as long as he did not control them. Replying to Master, this disciple is here to ask Master for some advice. Mu Yu wanted to set up a huge soul array, but with his own strength, he could not do it. He would have to rely on Master Lu's cultivation to do it. When Master Lu heard that Mu Yu was looking for him, he immediately became serious. Obviously, in his opinion, Mu Yu's matter was much more important than these Zhongtian disciples. Therefore, he turned to all the Zhongtian disciples and said, all of you could go back first. Luo Failong, Ji Wenkai, and Cheng. The 3 of you must prepare yourselves in the next few days and try to defeat the talisman sect's people in the talisman array competition. Luo Failong, Ji Wenkai, and Cheng Zhua, just like last year's talisman array competition. This year, it was the same 3 people. With Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai here, how could the Array faction win the talisman array competition? Cheng Zhua looked at Mu Yu with a strange expression, then looked at Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai. He knew that Mu Yu was not simple, and he also knew that Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai were spies from the talisman sect. However, he did not understand what Mu Yu was going to do. But he was just a weak Zhongtian disciple, and could not help much. Yes, this disciple will take his leave. All the Zhongtian disciples quickly left one after another, leaving only Master Lu and Mu Yu in the advancement hall. In the starry sky, the last array tablet still stood proudly, while the other 2 were shattered. Feng Mu, why are you looking for me? Master Lu asked. Mu Yu pondered for a long time. He had already decided to tell Master Lu about the spies from the talisman sect. So he said, replying to Master Lu, this disciple came here to tell Master Lu some important news. Mu Yu told Master Lu about the spies among the Zhongtian disciples of the Array faction, and also about the 2 spies among the Xiantian Array masters. His voice was very calm, but Master Lu's heart was in turmoil, and he was very surprised. Feng Mu, is this true? You must not joke about this matter. Master Lu frowned, not believing Mu Yu's words, because Mu Yu's words were too unbelievable. How could there be no movement from the talisman sect when there were so many spies? Master Lu, if I may be so bold as to ask, who is in charge of the new Zhongtian disciples when they enter the sect? Mu Yu asked. You will know after you pass the test of the array gate. This matter cannot be faked. The sect has arranged for a special Zhongtian array master to take care of this matter, Master Lu said. But did any of you know that I passed the 8th hexagram in the array gate? Mu Yu asked indifferently. If even he could sneak in so easily, it would not be difficult for the spies of the talisman sect to sneak in. What? You passed the 8th hexagram? How is that possible? Other than the heavenly array master, no one else has passed the 8th hexagram. You? Master Lu's eyes widened. But that's not right. If someone passes the 6th hexagram, all of us Xiantian array masters will know. This is a big matter, and the array gate will remind everyone. I chose to pass the hexagram in the face of death. Who else knows about this matter? Mu Yu asked calmly. Pass the hexagram in the face of death? You chose both the gate of life and the gate of death at the same time? Master Lu sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked at Mu Yu in shock. Then why didn't you continue? Passing the 8th hexagram consumed too much of my energy, so I didn't think much of it at the time and didn't continue, Mu Yu said casually. It was not that he did not have the energy to continue, but that he had no intention of continuing. Heavens! No wonder you were valued by the Patriarch. Not only did you achieve the 8 steps to heaven, but you also passed the 8th hexagram like the Patriarch. Master Lu exclaimed. Usually, Xiantian array masters only cared about the cultivation of Xiantian disciples and did not care much about the Zhongtian disciples. Therefore, they did not even know that someone had chosen to pass the hexagram in the face of death. Fortunately, this person was Mu Yu. If it was any other new disciple, then no matter how talented they would probably never be able to make a name for themselves under the hands of Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai. They would be killed in the cradle. Do you really think that there is no Xiantian disciple in the array sect for 10 years because there is no successor? You are wrong. I think that every time someone passes the 5th hexagram and wants to pass the 6th hexagram, they will be stopped by the spies of the talisman sect. They will only let them become Zhongtian disciples and then secretly frame them, directly ending their achievements in the array Dao. Mu Yu said in a deep voice. Every year, countless people came to the array sect to participate in the array sect's assessment. It was impossible that there was no Xiantian disciple. The main reason was that these Xiantian array masters were negligent in the management of the array sect's assessment. If no one passed the 6th hexagram, they would not be alarmed. This gave the spies of the talisman sect an opportunity to take advantage of. At that time, Mu Yu had only broken through 4 trigrams. So, he didn't continue. Therefore, he didn't attract the attention of Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai. If he had continued to break through, Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai would have come looking for him. Master Lu's face turned red after hearing Mu Yu's words. He was afraid that the array sect's failure in the past 10 years was not because they could not recruit Xiantian disciples, but because they had missed the opportunity to recruit Xiantian disciples because of the spies of the talisman sect. If they could personally supervise the array sect's assessment, the array sect would not be in such a predicament today. Even their only Xiantian disciple was a spy of the talisman sect. According to the frequency of recruiting 2 Xiantian disciples a year, at least 20 Xiantian disciples were framed by Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai, causing them to become ordinary people. This is a huge loss, isn't it? Mu Yu's words were very harsh, but they were the truth. The appearance of 2 Xiantian disciples a year was only a conservative estimate. Master Lu looked very depressed. This matter made him feel very sad. It turned out that this was the reason why there was no Xiantian disciple in the array sect for so many years. These Xiantian array masters usually only cared about going out to deal with other sects, but neglected the situation of their disciples. This was a serious dereliction of duty. I might believe you when you say that Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai are spies of the Talisman sect. After all, what they did was not right. But how could Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian be spies? Although Situ Yantian and I don't get along, I know his character very well. He can't be a spy of the Talisman sect. Master Lu shook his head and said, and Mu Qinghong, he's the only Xiantian disciple of our array sect. How could he be a spy of the Talisman sect? Master Lu still wanted to grasp at the last straw. Muyu had already expected that Master Lu would not believe him so easily. It was too outrageous to say that there was a spy, not to mention that it involved a Xiantian array master and a Xiantian disciple. Muyu's biggest headache was that he had no evidence. But at this moment, with the cover of the array Heavenly Tao, evidence did not seem so important. In the array Heavenly Tao, the words of the array Heavenly Tao represented supreme authority, and no one dared to question it. The ancestral master told me to ask for your help. That's why he gave me this ancestral token. Muyu took out the ancestral token, and a majestic aura swept out again, making Master Lu's heart palpitate and making him believe him even more. Seeing the ancestral token was like seeing the array Heavenly Tao. Muyu's words represented the will of the array Heavenly Tao, so Master Lu did not dare to question it. Master Lu gritted his teeth and said, "All right, we'll first set up a soul formation in the advancement hall and ferret out all the spies of the culmination disciples. Then we'll know if Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian are spies. However, if you want to control all the culmination disciples at once, you'll need a lot of soul wood. Where are you going to get it?" If it was really because of their dereliction of duty that the array Heavenly Tao had no successor, then he had to find a way to make up for it. Getting rid of the pests was the top priority. Muyu smiled faintly. That's not a problem. The soul formation was a very complicated array. Because there were too many people needed to control it, it could not be used as a movement array. The advancement hall was where all the culmination disciples gathered, and it was the most convenient place to set up the soul formation, ensuring that all the culmination disciples would be under Muyu's control. Muyu had come to the advancement hall for the third array tablet, but after he found a way to control the culmination disciples, he chose to postpone the matter of the array tablet. No matter what Mu Qinghong wanted to tell him, it was not as important as ferreting out all the spies. The soul formation was very complicated, and it was not like the soul talisman used by the talisman grandmaster Mo Ziming, which had a time limit. The soul talisman could be controlled for about 4 hours, after which it would lose its effect. However, the soul formation was different. As long as one entered the soul formation, they would be imprinted with an array seal, and no matter where they went, they would be controlled. As long as the soul formation was not destroyed, they would not be able to escape the control. Such a terrifying array formation went against all logic, and was listed as a forbidden array by the array faction, and was not allowed to be used. The soul formation that Master Lu knew of also had the flaw of a short time limit, and the perfect soul formation was only known to the array Heavenly Tao and Muyu. Muyu would not display the perfect soul formation. With Master Lu's help, the array runes spread throughout the advancement hall, but this array formation was flawed and incomplete. Muyu had promised the array Heavenly Tao that he would not display the complete soul formation, in case it fell into the hands of the 3 heavenly palaces. As long as Muyu ferreted out the spies, he would not need to rely on this array formation, and could secretly place the soul wood in their bodies to control them. As for whether or not the soul would suck away their lives, Muyu did not want to consider it. Against spies, there was no need to be soft-hearted. Setting up the soul formation took Master Lu and Muyu almost an entire day, before Master Lu once again gathered all the culmination disciples and array masters to the advancement hall. Chapter 452. Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai were both sent away by Master Lu. Because of the God-vanquishing talisman in their bodies, they could not be controlled. When the Zhongtian disciples and the Zhongtian array masters arrived at the advancement hall, they were all a little confused because Master Lu had already explained many things yesterday, and they did not understand why he had gathered everyone together again. Besides Luo Filong and Ji Wenkai, is everyone here? Master Lu swept his gaze over all the Zhongtian disciples and Zhongtian array masters, counting the number of people in passing. Master Lu, may I ask what important matter you have gathered us here today? Song Qingyu could not help but ask. Normally, the Zhongtian array masters did not need to come here, so he did not understand why they had to be here today. Master Lu motioned for him to be quiet, then said, "The reason I have gathered everyone here today is naturally for the array formation competition in 2 days. There are some things I need to confirm with everyone." Everyone's eyes were fixed on Master Lu, waiting for him to continue. But Master Lu did not speak at this time. Instead, his hands began to form a complicated series of hand seals. "Master Lu, I'll have to trouble you." Mu Yu's figure appeared in the corner, and the ground of the advancement hall suddenly lit up with a series of golden runes, instantly enveloping all the Zhongtian disciples and Zhongtian array masters. What's going on? Many people looked at all this in confusion, but as Master Lu's fingers continued to strike the runes, a series of seals flew out from the runes, merging into the bodies of all the Zhongtian disciples and Zhongtian array masters. The eyes of all the Zhongtian disciples and Zhongtian array masters immediately dimmed, without any emotion, and their faces were extremely calm. With Master Lu's help, they were all controlled by Mu Yu's soul array, losing their own consciousness. Mu Yu controlled the soul wood in the middle of the array, and all the runes were centered around the soul wood. After the runes had merged into everyone's bodies, the soul wood had already taken control of everyone's consciousness. With Master Lu's help, Mu Yu quickly scanned through everyone's memories. "So it's you pests." In just a moment, Mu Yu had already picked out 55 spies from the Talisman sect. Including Luo Filong and Ji Wenkai who were not present, there were exactly 57 spies. Without saying a word, he directly gathered all the spies in a group and asked, one by one, "Tell me your identities and the plan to attack the Array sect." The Zhongtian disciple at the front of the group stood up, his eyes lifeless as he said, "My name is Zhang Rue, formerly known as Zhang Yun. I am a spy sent by the Talisman sect. I am responsible for destroying the Array faction's offensive and defensive array formations during the array formation competition. My name is Bai Jun, and my original name is Zhao Qing. I am in charge of ringing the bell that day. My mission is to ensure that no matter what happens, the bell will not ring, so that the sound of an enemy invasion will not be transmitted to the ears of all the Array faction disciples. Array sex. My name is Wan Yong. My original name was Wan San. I was in charge of assisting the Hotian disciples team leader, Wei Jun, to kill the Hotian Array master on duty. My name is Kong Yuan, formerly known as Kong Xian. I am in charge of eliminating all the illusory arrays in the Array faction, allowing the disciples of the Talisman faction to freely seize the cultivation grounds of the Array faction's Zhongtian disciples and control the entrance to the Array faction. The 54 spies began to speak in an orderly manner about how they would act as spies for the Talisman sect during the Talisman formation competition, how they would destroy the Array sect's protective formation, how they would act as sentries, and how they would conceal themselves. Every single action was extremely detailed. After each spy reported their mission, Master Lu's face sank a bit. The more he listened, the more frightened he became. Talisman Grandmaster's plan was simply perfect to the extreme. Coupled with the fact that everyone would place their attention on the day of the Talisman competition, this plan could be said to be flawless. According to their method, they can really break through the outer defenses of our Array faction. Master Lu's expression was incomparably solemn. After careful consideration, he was shocked to discover that the Talisman Grandmaster's invasion could completely destroy most of the Array faction's mountain gates, leaving only the core area with the Array Hall as the center. These are just insignificant caterpillars. When the time comes, Mu Qinghong and Sitian Tian will act as spies in the Array Hall, and the entire Array faction will be taken over by the Talisman Grandmaster. Mu Yu said sternly. The Array Hall was the core line of defense of the Array faction. As long as the Array Hall was not breached, the Array faction would not be destroyed. The Talisman Grandmaster clearly intended to use Situ Yang Tian and Mu Chenghong. When the time came, everyone in the Array faction would retreat into the Array Hall. These two spies would work together with the Talisman Grandmaster and easily break through the Array Hall and destroy the Array faction. This won't do. We must inform the Sect Master of this. Master Lu's face was filled with anger. He never expected that there would be so many spies among the Zhongtian disciples. Some of them were even Zhongtian Array Masters. I already know. Zhuge Xiaosheng appeared in the advancement hall with a heavy expression. When he saw the familiar faces of the Zhongtian disciples and Zhongtian Array Masters, he sighed heavily. Greetings, Sect Master. Muyu had already gone to find Zhuge Xiaosheng yesterday and told him everything. After all, Zhuge Xiaosheng was the Sect Master of the Array faction. Muyu had to rely on him for this matter. Sect Master, we must take precautions against this matter. If Situ Yang Tian and Mu Chenghong are spies, we must eliminate them from the roots. Master Lu said angrily. Zhuge Xiaosheng's expression was very gloomy. It's fine if Luo Feilong and Ji Wenkai are spies, but even Mu Chenghong is a spy. Sigh. This is my negligence as the Sect Master. Zhuge Xiaosheng's old body looked so lonely in the advancement hall. After learning of this matter yesterday, how could he believe Muyu? He immediately went to the Forbidden Forest to find the Array Heavenly Tao to verify this. However, the Array Heavenly Tao was already unable to react and had fallen into a deep sleep. The moment something happened to the Array Heavenly Tao, he felt as if the backbone of the Array faction had been shattered, causing him to lose his sense of propriety. Today, when he saw the Zhongtian disciples and Zhongtian Array Masters describe the plan to attack the Array faction in such detail, he had no choice but to believe them. The Array faction has been invaded by the Talisman sect for so many years, but I didn't even notice. I've let down my ancestors. I'm not worthy of being the Sect Master. Zhuge Xiaosheng looked up and sighed. For so many years, the Array faction hadn't produced a single Xiantian disciple. It wasn't because their talents had withered, but because their negligence had caused the true talents to be suppressed by spies. This was indeed the negligence of the Sect Master, Zhuge Xiaosheng. Sect Master, please don't blame yourself. The Talisman sect is too cunning. Sect Master, you can immediately capture Mu Chenghong and Situ Yang Tian and punish them harshly. Master Lu clenched his fists. Zhuge Xiaosheng shook his head and said, Feng Mu has told me everything. It's impossible for the Talisman sect alone to have such a background. Since they've sided with Stargate, Stargate must be involved. If we want to resist the Talisman sect and Stargate scheme, we must activate the Formation Hall. Since the Patriarch has handed this matter to Feng Mu, the rest of us must help Feng Mu to hold the fort. Mu Chenghong and Situ Yang Tian are indispensable. They must also help hold the fort. Then do the other masters know about this? We must also make sure that everyone knows about this, Master Lu said solemnly. Zhuge Xiaosheng gradually put away the gloomy expression on his face. As the leader of a sect, he had to set an example and not lose his composure. He pondered for a moment and looked at Muyu. Feng Mu, is the Patriarch sure that the Xiantian Array Master spies are Mu Chenghong and Situ Yang Tian? Muyu said, Mu Chenghong is undoubtedly a spy. It's just that the Xiantian Array Master didn't make it clear that day. However, Mu Chenghong is a disciple that Situ Yang Tian brought back from the outside. He's usually the closest to Mu Chenghong. I'm afraid that this spy is Situ Yang Tian. That's right. Situ Yang Tian has always disliked Feng Mu ever since he found out about Feng Mu's talent. Who would believe that he's not guilty? Master Lu said with righteous indignation. Usually, Situ Yang Tian would always mock and ridicule Muyu. This alone was enough to prove that he was right. Zhuge Xiaosheng shook his head and said, If we can't be 100% sure that it's Situ Yang Tian, we can't tell everyone about this. If it's not Situ Yang Tian, we'll alert the enemy. We'll go to the array hall and set up the soul array later. The soul arrays we have now all have flaws in controlling time. So this soul array can only be activated when we help Feng Mu control the array hall that day. We just need to control them. Mu Yu had promised Array Heavenly Dao not to reveal the complete soul array. If he used the complete soul array, he would need to rely on Zhuge Shaosheng or Master Lu's ability. Both of them would know the complete soul array. It wasn't that Mu Yu didn't believe that Zhuge Shaosheng and Master Lu wouldn't be able to keep the secret, but he was worried that the array guardians of the Triple Palace would use terrifying methods to control the two of them and reveal the complete soul array. That would lead to a huge mistake. As for Mu Yu himself, he wouldn't be controlled at all. The soul wood was ineffective against him. Since they couldn't use the complete soul array, they could only rely on the flawed soul array. This array could only be activated after Talisman Grandmaster revealed his true identity to resist Talisman Grandmaster's plan. Then what should we do with these people? Kill them all? Master Lu looked at these Zhongtian disciples with a face full of regret. Some of them were people he valued very much, but he didn't expect them to be spies. No, we need to lure the wolf into the house, then close the door and beat the dog. Mu Yu's eyes flashed with a black and white light. Since Talisman Grandmaster has been scheming for so long, how can we let his plan fail? They've always coveted the Array Sect's foundation and secretly used tricks. Now it's time for the Array Sect to collect some interest. This time, we must make them pay the price. Feng Mu, what do you plan to do? Zhuge Shaosheng asked. Array Heavenly Dao left everything to Mu Yu. Mu Yu was the spokesperson of Array Heavenly Dao. Zhuge Shaosheng had no choice but to refer to Mu Yu's words. Chapter 453. The Array Talisman Competition was a major event, and all the disciples of the Array faction treated it seriously. It was related to the reputation of the Array faction and the Talisman faction. For the past few years, the Array faction had been defeated and mocked by the Talisman faction. Every disciple of the Array faction was filled with anger. After all, the spies sent by the Talisman faction were only a small part of the Array faction. Most of the Array faction disciples had a strong sense of belonging to the Array faction. Although they usually listened to Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai, many of them would not betray the Array faction. Luo Failong and Ji Wenkai's mission was not to instigate the Array faction disciples, but to suppress them so that the Array faction could not develop. Therefore, they would not instigate anyone to betray the Array faction, let alone reveal their identities as spies of the Talisman faction. Today, the Talisman faction would bring their disciples to the Array faction to participate in the Array Talisman competition. The 19 Xiantian Array Masters, led by Zhuge Shaosheng, were already waiting at the Array faction's guest welcoming peak. The Array faction's guest welcoming peak was used by the Array faction to receive visitors. The guest welcoming peak was filled with scattered courtyards and various mysterious arrays. Regardless of the size of the visitors, they would be received here. The core of the Array faction was the Array Hall. Therefore, they would never place the Array Hall as the Array welcoming peak was too important. It also hid great secrets and could not be easily set foot in by outsiders. The guest welcoming peak was not located in the core area of the Array faction. It was only near the border. However, one could see the vast and magnificent Array Hall floating in midair from the guest welcoming peak. The sky stairs surrounding the simple and unadorned Array Hall had begun to disperse and revolve around the Array Hall. It looked unique from afar. Dong, dong. The melodious sound of the green bell spread throughout the Array faction. The green bell rang twice, indicating that an important guest had arrived. All the disciples of the Array faction could not be negligent. However, the bell that welcomed the guest today was actually slightly unnecessary. Everyone knew about the Talisman Formation competition since a long time ago. Moreover, in the eyes of all the disciples of the Talisman sect, the members of the Talisman sect weren't important guests at all. They were only formidable old enemies. Haha, sect leader Zhuge, long time no see. How have you been? A hearty laughter rolled over from afar. Shortly after, a few ripples spread out in the air. A yellow and exquisite talisman paper transformed from the ripples and grew with the wind. Very quickly, it transformed into a huge talisman paper. It was like a talisman door, and various talisman markings were engraved on it. After that, the talisman markings started to flicker. Over 10 figures slowly walked out from the talisman door and floated in midair. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s. He was dignified, and his every movement revealed the bearing of a superior. The middle-aged man's aura was restrained, and his eyes flashed with a deep yellow light. He stood there, and no one dared to underestimate him. This person was the sect master of the talisman sect, Chong Tianqing. Sect leader Chong, please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Zhuge Xiaosheng looked at Chong Tianqing and smiled. He cupped his hands and bowed, but there was a trace of anger in his eyes. Chong Tianqing had definitely come prepared this time. Not only did he want to humiliate the disciples of the Array faction in the talisman competition, but he also wanted to seize the foundation of the Array faction after the competition. Zhuge Xiaosheng was very polite on the surface, but his heart was filled with hatred. Behind Chong Tianqing stood 3 Khanate talisman masters at the spirit severing stage. These 3 talisman masters had extraordinary auras, and they looked leisurely. When their gazes landed on the 19 Khanate Array masters of the Array faction, they still had a provocative look on their faces. They were arrogant and did not take the Khanate Array masters of the Array faction seriously at all. One of them was the Khanate talisman master that Mu Yu had met before. He was also the contact of the talisman sect spy in the Array faction, Zhou Jinglin. Behind the 3 celestial masters were 9 young men with different auras. 3 of them were particularly eye-catching. One of them was Mo Ziming, the genius of the talisman sect who had wanted to assassinate Mu Yu. He was ranked 71st on the Supreme Immortal ranking. The other person was called Jiang Xiangdi. She was a graceful woman with slanted eyebrows and almond-shaped eyes. Her thin lips were slightly curved, and she had an unconcealable charm. She had an extremely arrogant expression and looked down on everyone. She was ranked 75th on the Supreme Immortal ranking and was an Khanate disciple of the talisman sect. The young man in the middle was as cold as ice and did not smile. His eyes flickered with a cold light, and he was like a snowy mountain that made people stay away from him. His name was Ling Zheng, and he was ranked 67th on the Supreme Immortal ranking, which was even higher than Mu Qinghong. Among the other 6 young men, 3 of them were at the Jindan stage, while the other 3 were at the nascent soul stage. They were also from the talisman sect who had come to participate in the Array talisman competition. All of them, more or less, had an inexplicable sense of superiority on their faces. At the same time, they had an unconcealable attitude and were extremely arrogant. It was no wonder that the people from the talisman sect were so arrogant. The Array faction had declined in recent years and had no successor. There were a total of 19 Khanate Array masters, and one of them was loyal to the talisman sect. In addition, the only Khanate disciple of the Array faction, Mu Qinghong, was a spy of the talisman sect. How could the Array faction fight with them? In their opinion, the destruction of the Array faction was already a fact. Sect leader Zhuge, I've heard that a talented Xiantian realm disciple has appeared in your sect. It's really worth celebrating. Chong Tianqing looked at Zhuge Xiaosheng with a fake smile. At the same time, he glanced at everyone present. However, other than the 19 Khanate Array masters, there was no one else. Even Mu Qinghong was not present. Thank you, sect leader Chong. My useless disciple is far inferior to the 3 of you. Fortunately, Mu Qinghong is able to take on the heavy responsibility of the Array faction. Zhuge Xiaosheng smiled politely. When he talked about Mu Qinghong, he was angry and regretful. If not for his identity, Mu Qinghong was indeed the hope of the Array faction. Martial nephew Mu's talent is indeed a role model for the younger generation. I hope that martial nephew Mu can lead the Array faction to rise. Speaking of which, the Array faction has not defeated us in the Array talisman competition for 10 years, right? I hope this year is not the 11th year. Chang Tianqing sneered. Zhuge Xiaoxing's face was very ugly. This blatant mockery made him, the sect leader, blush slightly. However, this was also a fact. Every year, there would be 9 rounds in the Array Talisman competition. The team that won the most rounds would be considered the winner. The Array faction had only won 2 or 3 rounds in the past few years. With the spies and the sect and the decline of the young disciples, the Array faction had been unable to raise its head. Even though he hated the members of the Talisman sect to the bone, he couldn't shed all pretenses before the members of the Talisman sect gave themselves away. In his opinion, Feng Mu's plan to beat them at their own game was flawless. Once the Talisman sect made a move, what awaited them would definitely be a storm of attacks. Sect leader Chang, you don't have to worry about this. With Mu Qinghong and Feng Mu, we will surpass them sooner or later. Zhuge Xiaoxing said. Their gazes collided in the air as if invisible sparks were burning. Then, both of them sneered in their hearts. Chang Tianqing laughed in his heart. Old Zhuge, do you really think Mu Qinghong is your man? After I take down your Array faction, you will know why you die. Zhuge Xiaoxing also felt endless coldness. Do you really think I don't know Mu Qinghong's true identity? I want to see what you can do to my Array faction. The two sect leaders had different thoughts. On the surface, they were polite to each other, but in their hearts, they wanted to kill each other. Zhuge Xiaoxing knew that there must be a large number of people from the Talisman sect hiding outside the Array faction. There were even some self-cultivators from the Stargate. These people were all eyeing the Array faction covetously. As long as Chang Tianqing gave the order, they would attack the Array faction with the help of the spies. The Talisman sect and the Stargate had been plotting for a long time. They were also aggressive. Now that the Array faction was weakened and 2 spies had infiltrated, it could be said that they were facing internal and external troubles. They could only rely on Feng Mu to get through this crisis. Chang Tianqing looked at the ancient and solemn Array Hall in the distance. Even though he looked down on Array Dao, he couldn't help but admire the Array Hall. The Array Hall could be said to be the supreme masterpiece of Array Dao. It was once the symbol of the Array Talisman sect. However, after the Array Talisman sect was separated, it fell into the hands of the Array faction. It was rumored that the Array Hall used to be called the Array Talisman Hall. It was a collection of the world's most profound array and talisman skills. However, the Array faction had already occupied it for hundreds of years. The people from the Talisman sect had always treated the Array Hall as their treasure and wanted to take it back. In the past, they didn't dare to take it back because of the existence of the Array Heavenly Dao. The Talisman sect didn't have a genius like the Array Heavenly Dao. However, now that they had the support of the Stargate and knew that the Array Heavenly Dao couldn't even protect himself, the Array Hall was already in their bag. The Array Hall is really majestic and domineering. It should have a good owner and shouldn't be buried. Chang Tianqing chuckled. He didn't hide his desire to take it for himself. Sima Ji Xian knew that Chang Tianqing had already dared to brazenly say these words. It indeed has a good owner. There's no need for Sect Master Chang to worry about the things of the Array faction. Zhuge Xiaoxing suppressed the anger in his heart. Chang Tianqing's tone was as if the Talisman sect was the master of the Array faction. How shameless! Master Lu sneered at the side. Our Array faction's Array Hall is profound, and only the fated ones can occupy it. It's not like those fancy paper skills in Who. They can't even be seen on the stage, but still want to eat swan meat. Master Lu, you're right. The Array Hall is occupied by the fated ones. However, the fated ones will also reach the end of their fate one day. Don't you think so? Zhou Jinglin stood up and met Master Lu's gaze. His eyes flickered with a strange light, piercing straight into Master Lu's eyes. Master Lu only felt a blur in front of his eyes, but soon returned to normal. He frowned and stared back at him, unwilling to be outdone. Zhou Jinglin had snatched many of the Array faction's businesses from him, and Master Lu was still brooding over it. I think it's getting late. Why don't we rest for a while and see the results of the talisman competition tomorrow? Chang Tianqing said. Before he seized all of the Array faction's businesses, he had to ruthlessly defeat the Array faction in the talisman competition and let them understand that the talisman sect was the king now. That's good. Junior brother Liu, send someone to bring them to rest, Zhuge Xiaosheng said indifferently. Follow closely. Don't lose track of them. Master Liu glanced at the talisman sect and couldn't be bothered to say anything else. A dazzling formation pattern flickered, and he disappeared on the spot. His speed was very fast. He purposely wanted to take the Array faction down a notch. This Master Liu is really good at treating his guests. Chang Tianqing sneered. Then, he waved his hand and swept up his disciples. He turned into a stream of light and followed Master Liu. The talisman competition hadn't started yet, but both sides were already secretly competing. Zhuge Xiaosheng didn't have any hope for tomorrow's talisman competition. Mu Qinghong was a spy from the talisman sect, and Feng Mu only had the cultivation of the Jindan period. The remaining Song Qingyu was no match for any of the 3 innate stage disciples from the talisman sect. As for the Zhongtan disciples, in order not to alert the enemy, he still sent the 2 spies, Luo Feilong and Ji Wenkai. It was simply a pipe dream for the Array faction to win the talisman competition. Chapter 454. The starry night sky was still as bright as ever. The bright moon hung leisurely in the sky, gracefully complementing the stars. The air was a little stuffy, and the occasional chirping of insects could be heard in the dark night. The Array sect seemed peaceful under the cover of the night, but an invisible storm was brewing in the dark and was about to engulf the entire sect. Muyu looked at the peaceful Array sect from the highest peak. Regardless of the outcome of tomorrow's talisman competition, the Talisman Grandmaster would probably reveal their true colors and use force to seize the Array sect's property. If the Array sect couldn't resist this calamity, it might really disappear forever in the long river of history and become a memory of the people, gradually forgotten by time. Little Shuai and Long Tongue, I'll need your help tomorrow, Muyu said softly. Little Shuai chewed on an apple and mumbled incoherently. Then he said, no problem. Muyu, I'm worried that the little rat will mess things up. Long Tongue looked at the unreliable little Shuai with dissatisfaction. Pooey caterpillar, well, have I ever messed things up? Little Shuai spat out the food in his mouth and scolded. You've never done anything right. You can't even walk when you see food. How dare you say that? Long Tongue retorted. All right, the 2 of you just follow the plan. I'll take care of the rest. Muyu was still a little worried about tomorrow's plan. He had a very bad premonition that something seemed to be wrong. Are you thinking about Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian? Long Tongue asked. Muyu nodded. They're spies of the Talisman Grandmaster after all. If they don't enter the Array Hall, all the plans will be for naught. The Divine Soul Array was set up in the Array Hall. As long as Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian entered the Array Hall, Muyu could use their power to control the Array Hall to resist the attacks of the Talisman Grandmaster and Stargate. However, if Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian chose to betray him and not enter the Array Hall, things would become very troublesome. Why does Mu Qinghong want you to break the 3rd Array tablet so badly? Long Tongue recalled what happened a few days ago. At that time, Mu Qinghong kept emphasizing the 3rd Array tablet. Muyu frowned. He had completely forgotten about the matter of the 3rd Array tablet. At that time, when he went to the advancement hall, he wanted to check the 3rd formation tablet, but then he met Master Liu, so this matter was put on hold. At this time, the Array tablet was not that important. But for some reason, the Array tablet became a thorn in his heart. Was it really necessary to break the Array tablet? If we fail tomorrow, the Array faction will be finished. Why are we still thinking about the Array tablet? Little Marshal said. Muyu looked at the advancement hall in the distance. It was peaceful there. There was not a single person in the advancement hall tonight. All the disciples were conserving their energy for tomorrow's talisman competition. Regardless of whether they had the chance to go on stage or not, no one wanted to miss the showdown between Array techniques and talisman techniques. You're right. We really don't need to care about the 3rd Array tablet. Muyu turned and left the advancement hall. He did not know what the third array tablet meant. Mu Qinghong was a spy of the Talisman sect, so he was the only connate disciple of the array faction. He needed the help of Master Lu and Zhuge Shaosheng to open the array hall and protect the array faction. This was the most important thing. At the entrance of the advancement hall, Mu Qinghong quietly looked at Mu Yu, who turned and left. The faint chaotic array patterns on his body gradually dissipated. His face was hidden in the shadows, so his expression could not be seen. He looked up at the bright moon and whispered, "The time of the array faction's destruction is getting closer and closer." A gust of wind blew and Mu Qinghong's figure disappeared. Mu Yu was not the only one who was uneasy at night in the array faction. There were a few people who were also worried about the future of the array faction. Master Lu was sitting at a stone table in his courtyard. There was a pot of tea in front of him, but the tea had already turned cold. He had a worried look on his face. He grew up in the array faction and was very close to every flower and grass in the array faction. He was the one who was most unwilling to see the array faction destroyed. However, there was always a strange feeling of uneasiness in his heart. Especially after seeing Zhou Jinglin from the Talisman sect today, this feeling of uneasiness grew stronger and stronger. The moment he met Zhou Jinglin's eyes, Master Lu realized that he was absent-minded for a moment for no reason. This moment happened in the blink of an eye, but it made him alert. This was because he remembered that this was not the first time he had been absent-minded. The last time he met Zhou Jinglin at the Stargate, Master Lu had also been absent-minded for a moment when he met Zhou Jinglin's eyes. But why was this? Why was he absent-minded for a moment? At that moment, it was as if his mind had been emptied and he did not have any thoughts. However, he returned to normal in the blink of an eye. This was an extremely strange thing. Could it be that that old bastard Zhou Jinglin used some kind of talisman technique on me? Master Lu muttered to himself. However, he quickly overturned this idea because his array techniques were on par with Zhou Jinglin's talisman techniques. It was impossible for Zhou Jinglin to silently use a talisman technique on him. However, at this moment, Master Lu raised his head vigilantly because the array formation in his residence trembled slightly and then turned into nothingness. Someone had broken into his residence and even broken his array technique. Situ Yangtian walked out of the darkness. His face looked a little haggard, and there was an indescribable sense of loss and regret. The anger in Master Lu's heart burned with a tongue. Situ Yangtian, you traitor of the Talisman sect. Master Lu wished he could tear Situ Yangtian into pieces. Situ Yangtian had entered the array faction at the same time as him, and they had known each other for 70 to 80 years. Although the two of them had always been at loggerheads over trivial matters, he had always thought that Situ Yangtian was as loyal to the array faction as he was. Who would have thought that Situ Yangtian was actually a traitor? Master Lu forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. He knew Feng Mu's plan. Feng Mu would use the Divine Soul Array to control Situ Yangtian in the Array Hall tomorrow. Situ Yangtian was an indispensable person to resist the conspiracy of the Talisman sect and Stargate. Master Lu did not want Situ Yangtian to notice anything and affect Feng Mu's plan. Situ Yangtian, what are you doing here? Master Lu asked in a deep voice. Situ Yangtian slowly walked over and sat down on the stone chair in front of Master Lu. At night, Situ Yangtian's expression was less gloomy than usual, but there was an indescribable melancholy. This was the first time Master Lu had seen such an expression. He felt that there was something wrong with Situ Yangtian tonight. Just like he felt that something was wrong with himself, he also felt that something was wrong with Situ Yangtian. Situ Yangtian casually waved his hand, and an empty teacup appeared in his hand. He picked up Master Lu's teapot and poured a cup of tea. After taking a sip, he frowned and said, "The tea is cold. My tea is not for cold-hearted people." Master Lu tried his best to control himself. He wanted nothing more than to make a move on Situ Yangtian and capture this traitor. The Array faction had fallen to its current state because of this traitor. But he could not. He could only endure. He would endure until tomorrow. Situ Yangtian raised his head and looked at Master Lu. After a while, he asked. We've known each other for 82 years, right? They had been enemies for 82 years, but one of them was a traitor of the Talisman sect. Master Lu also looked at Situ Yantian and sighed his heart. They had been enemies for 82 years. Even if they blamed each other all day long, their relationship as fellow disciples was still there after all. Although Master Lu didn't like Situ Yantian, if he had to kill Situ Yantian with his own hands, he wouldn't do it so easily. But in the face of friendship and the sect, he could only choose the sect. You didn't come to see me tonight to catch up with me, did you? Master Lu picked up his teacup. Spiritual power surged in his hand and warmed the tea in the teacup. Situ Yantian faintly smiled, his expression somewhat desolate. This expression, however, made Master Lu feel even more uneasy. He vaguely felt that Situ Yantian was not that simple. What exactly was the problem? I'm here to kill you. Situ Yantian slowly uttered these words. Bang! The teacup in Master Lu's hand was crushed. He stared at Situ Yantian, and the spiritual power in his body surged restlessly. Your master can't even wait for one night? Master Lu said angrily. He no longer cared about hiding it. Situ Yantian's words were equivalent to indirectly admitting that he was a traitor of the Talisman sect. Tomorrow is the Array Talisman competition. Are you that impatient? I can't wait until tomorrow, because after tomorrow, the Array Talisman sect will be destroyed. I must stop you from sending the Array Talisman sect to hell. Situ Yantian's words sounded very sad. Stop Master Lu from sending the Array Talisman sect to hell? Master Lu was stunned. How could he send the Array Talisman sect to hell? What do you mean? Master Lu didn't understand. He felt that it was a little ridiculous. Why did Situ Yantian's words make it sound like he was the traitor of the Talisman sect? We don't have to play dumb anymore. I know you're a traitor of the Talisman sect. Situ Yantian's words were like a thunderclap that exploded in Master Lu's ears. Master Lu was slightly startled, and the uneasy feeling in his heart grew stronger. He rebuked angrily. Situ Yantian, I didn't expect you to be so shameless. You're clearly a traitor of the Talisman sect, yet you're still framing me? Wasn't he just trying to find an excuse to kill someone by making it sound so righteous? Come, use whatever means you have. I, Lu Dei, will take them all. Purple formation patterns surrounded Master Lu, and the stone table in front of him had turned into powder. You don't have to pretend anymore. I've already secretly investigated. You and Mu Qinghong are traitors of the Talisman sect. The Array Talisman sect foundation outside was lost because of you. Do you think you can do it flawlessly? We've been fighting for 82 years. Don't you think we know each other's business? You can hide it from others, but how can you hide it from me? You're in cahoots with Zhou Jinglin of the Talisman sect, aren't you? The formation patterns on Situ Yantian's body also began to surge. His aura wasn't any weaker than Master Lu's. They knew each other's formation skills very well. If they were to fight, it was hard to say who would win. Master Lu's uneasiness had reached an extreme. What was going on? Could it be that Situ Yantian wasn't a traitor of the Talisman sect? But that was impossible. Feng Mu had said that Situ Yantian was a traitor of the Talisman sect. What was the problem? Rustle, rustle, rustle. Light footsteps came from the darkness. These footsteps seemed so abrupt in the silent night, as if they were stepping on Master Lu's chest. Master Lu's expression grew heavier and heavier. He really felt that something was going to happen. Situ Yantian, you really have sharp eyes. Zhou Jinglin slowly walked out of the darkness with a smug smile on his face. He looked at Situ Yantian as if he was announcing a dead man's arrival. Master Lu and Situ Yantian's expressions changed abruptly. They looked at each other, trying to see if their scheme had succeeded. However, they only saw confusion on each other's faces. You still brought people to kill me? Master Lu questioned Situ Yantian. Bring people? Isn't he your master? Situ Yantian rebuked angrily. Situ Yantian wasn't a traitor? You don't have to fight. Master Lu, take a good look at me. Zhou Jinglin said lazily. Master Lu subconsciously cast his gaze on Zhou Jinglin's face. A dark brown light flashed across Zhou Jinglin's eyes, like a bolt of lightning shooting into Master Lu's eyes. Master Lu's vision blurred. He felt that he had fallen into an indescribable blank state. He had lost all self-awareness. Master! Master Lu's eyes were dazed. He looked at Zhou Jinglin without any emotion. Just like the Zhongtian disciples that Mu Yu had control with the soul formation, Master Lu didn't even know when Zhou Jinglin had taken control of him. Chapter 455. The wind gently blew through the forest, and the fallen leaves fluttered in the wind under the bright moon. 3 figures flashed through the forest, looking somber and relaxed. Perhaps even Mu Yu wouldn't have thought that the real spy was Master Lu and not Situ Yantian. Situ Yantian looked at Zhou Jinglin angrily. Slave Dan? No, Lu Dei doesn't even know he's being controlled. Divine Soul Talisman? It's impossible for a Divine Soul Talisman to last for so long. What did you use to control him? Situ Yantian had long suspected that Master Lu was a spy from the Talisman sect, but he couldn't find any conclusive evidence. When Master Lu discovered the genius Mu Yu, Situ Yantian realized that Mu Yu was most likely a spy sent by the Talisman sect. Therefore, he had been mocking Mu Yu all this time, hoping to find something unusual about Mu Yu. It was also because of this that Mu Yu treated him as a spy. Situ Yantian usually didn't smile and was even very strict with the Zhongtian disciples. He was born with an unpleasant face. So many Zhongtian disciples kept a respectful distance from him. However, Situ Yantian actually had deep feelings for the Array sect. He didn't want to see the Array sect destroyed. Tonight, Situ Yantian came to find Master Lu. He planned to kill Master Lu to prevent an accident in tomorrow's Array sect competition that would lead to the Array sect's destruction. But he didn't expect Zhou Jinglin to be so cunning. He had been waiting for him here for a long time. Zhou Jinglin had already shot out many talismans in succession, merging into the void and isolating this area. He didn't want to alarm the others from the Array sect, but at the same time, he trapped Situ Yantian in his talisman technique. You don't need to worry about how to control him. Lu Dei, take it down with me. Zhou Jinglin's hand flashed with countless rays of light, and then he rushed towards Situ Yantian like a shuttle. Master Lu also leaped up, and the terrifying cultivation of a Xiantian Array master swept towards Situ Yantian, violently suppressing him with his array technique. Master Lu and Zhou Jinglin's cultivation bases weren't any weaker than Situ Yantian's. Their combined strength immediately caused Situ Yantian to fall into a difficult situation. However, what made Situ Yantian even more furious was yet to come. He suddenly felt powerless all over his body. The spirit force in his body seemed to be blocked by something. He couldn't condense it, and he couldn't even use formation techniques. Bang! Situ Yantian's body was heavily struck by Zhou Jinglin and was sent flying. He crashed into a large number of trees and spat out a mouthful of blood. When you came to kill Master Lu, didn't you think about the power of Master Lu's spirit-extinguishing array technique? Zhou Jinglin sneered. Master Lu had a unique spirit-extinguishing array technique, which could make the spirit power flow more slowly in the body of those who entered the range of his array technique. Situ Yantian also knew this. If it were any other time, he would have a way to resolve this spirit isolation array technique. But Zhou Jinglin's appearance at night had caused him to forget to guard against this. You want to seize the foundation of our array faction? Dream on. At this moment, Situ Yantian couldn't condense the spirit power in his body at all. Now that he was injured, it was even more impossible for him to resist the joint attack of these two people. He originally came to clean up the sect at night, but he didn't expect to become the one being cleaned up instead. I don't need to dream. Your array faction is already finished. Zhou Jinglin's palm landed heavily on Situ Yantian's body. Situ Yantian's face turned ashen and he fainted. Master Lu, oh Master Lu, it's really commendable that you're so loyal to the array faction. If you knew that you were the one who betrayed the array faction, would you be so ashamed that you would commit suicide? Zhou Jinglin kicked Situ Yangtian to the side. All the stone tables and chairs were destroyed by the array technique. He leisurely walked into Master Lu's room, pulled out a chair, and sat in front of him. Master Lu was expressionless. He didn't have any self-consciousness other than listening to Zhou Jinglin's instructions. Back then, in order to control you, you even killed a Khanate talisman master of my talisman faction. What a pity. But after tomorrow, the Array faction will belong to my talisman faction. Losing a Khanate talisman master won't be a big deal. Zhou Jinglin snorted coldly. The story of Master Lu being controlled started with the incident of Huaibaiwan. Back then, Master Lu had created a rather powerful green jade to record the information and location of a supreme immortal. Unfortunately, after Deadwood Evergreen saw through it, Huaibaiwan chose to find someone from the Talisman faction to do the same thing again. Zhou Jinglin had also clashed with Master Lu at that time. He'd secretly used 3 Khanate talisman arts to attack Master Lu when he wasn't paying attention. Unexpectedly, Master Lu's array technique was so superb that he'd killed a talisman faction Khanate talisman master on the spot. However, Master Lu was still subdued by them. In order to annex the array faction, they used a rather strange talisman art to control Master Lu. This talisman art was engraved in Master Lu's eyes and was barely visible. As long as Zhou Jinglin and Master Lu looked at each other, he could control Master Lu within 2 hours. However, this talisman art had a range of 1 kilometer. Once it exceeded this range, the talisman art would lose its effect and Master Lu would regain his consciousness. This talisman art was even more powerful than the soul talisman. Although there was a time limit and even a distance limit, Master Lu would definitely be present during the Array Talisman competition. Zhou Jinglin had plenty of opportunities to control Master Lu. Master Lu didn't know that he was being controlled. He only remembered that he negotiated with Zhou Jinglin at the $1 million trading firm and had lost to Zhou Jinglin, losing the $1 million trading firm's business. As for what had happened, he had no recollection of it at all. In order to find Feng Mu, this genius disciple, he didn't hide the fact that he'd lost to the Talisman faction. It was all to let the Zhongtian disciples feel a sense of crisis at all times. However, even Master Lu didn't know that that failure had already consigned the Array faction to eternal damnation. This was the sinister part of Zhou Jinglin's talisman art. It could be done without anyone noticing. Originally, a genius disciple had appeared in the Array faction. Zhou Jinglin had always wanted to find an opportunity to meet Master Lu and control him to kill Feng Mu. However, Master Lu hadn't left the Array faction since then and had been teaching Feng Mu wholeheartedly. Therefore, Zhou Jinglin hadn't been able to do anything to Feng Mu. This was also the reason why Mu Yu hadn't died in Master Lu's hands. Because of the time limit of this talisman art, Zhou Jinglin simply didn't have a suitable opportunity. Tell me about the situation in your Array faction. Situ Yangtian came to find you. Did the Xiantian Array Masters in your Array faction already know that our Talisman faction is going to destroy your Array faction tomorrow? Zhou Jinglin asked lazily. Master Lu said stiffly. Only me, the Sect Master, and Feng Mu know. Feng Mu learned from the Array Heavenly Tao that Mu Qinghong and Situ Yangtian are spies. He also learned that the Talisman faction has teamed up with Stargate to take down the Array faction in the Array Talisman competition. Feng Mu, what else does that kid know? What plans do you have to deal with it? Zhou Jinglin frowned. Feng Mu used the Divine Soul Array to control the spies sent by the Talisman faction into our Array faction. He learned about the specific plan of action of these 57 spies tomorrow. He beat them at their own game. After the enemy enters our Array faction tomorrow, we will set up all kinds of hidden killing arrays and kill all the people from the Talisman faction and Stargate. Master Lu was still as calm as ever when he said these words. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation in his emotions. Zhou Jinglin was slightly shocked. He didn't expect that the plan he had set up for so many years would have been seen through long ago. If he hadn't learned all of this tonight, he was afraid that he would have suffered heavy losses tomorrow. Tell me the location of all the killing arrays. Zhou Jinglin said slowly. Master Lu began to tell Zhou Jinglin all about Mu Yu's plan. He even told Zhou Jinglin where there were killing arrays in the array faction and where the real safe way in was. He even took out a topographic map of the array faction that Mu Yu had given him and gave it to Zhou Jinglin. What else? Zhou Jinglin continued to ask. We have set up a soul array in the array hall. If anything goes wrong tomorrow, we will retreat into the array hall. Feng Mu will use the soul array to control Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian, then control them to help hold the line. Feng Mu will take control of the array hall and repel all the enemies. Master Lu didn't hide anything. Control Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian to hold the line. Zhou Jinglin rubbed his chin and then glanced at the unconscious Situ Yantian on the ground. The corners of his mouth curled into a sly smile. Situ Yantian, it seems that I can't kill you. Zhou Jinglin sneered in his heart. How could he be hindered by such a simple plan when he came to seize control of the array faction? Even if the spies of the Zhongtian disciples were useless, they still had a way to break into the array faction. After all, they weren't fighting alone. They had Stargate behind them. The only thing they were afraid of was the array faction's array hall. As long as they didn't break through the array hall, they wouldn't be able to take down the array faction. Since this Feng Mu mistook Situ Yantian for a traitor, I'll help you. Situ Yantian, I'll let you live for one more day. Zhou Jinglin revealed a vicious smile. Master Lu, we'll see how you perform tomorrow. Master Lu was Zhou Jinglin's biggest trump card. This matter was done very secretly. In order to prevent it from being leaked, Zhou Jinglin didn't even tell Mu Qinghong who the Xiantian array master was. No one would have thought that Master Lu, who was usually the most devoted to the array faction and was also the most loyal and devoted person, was the hidden spy behind the scenes. What do I do tomorrow? Master Lu asked numbly. We'll talk about tomorrow. You won't remember it, even if I tell you now. Zhou Jinglin's smile flashed with endless coldness. He originally wanted to kill Feng Mu tonight, but he knew that Zhuge Shaosheng would definitely protect Feng Mu closely. The people from the Talisman Grandmaster and the Heavenly Star sect would only arrive tomorrow. If Zhou Jinglin gave himself away tonight, it was very likely that Zhuge Shaosheng would mobilize the entire sect to kill them. By then, the 12 of them would suffer heavy losses even if they managed to escape. It was better to be careful when entering the tiger's den. He stood up and walked towards Situ Yantian. Situ Yantian was an indispensable part of this matter. We didn't know that Master Lu was the real spy. If they retreated into the array hall tomorrow, Zhuge Shaosheng and Mu Yu would focus all their attention on Mu Qinghong and Situ Yantian. Then Master Lu would be able to obstruct them and catch them off guard. Once Zhou Jinglin controlled Master Lu to make a move on Mu Yu, it would be very difficult for him to guard against Mu Yu's trust in Master Lu. The Talisman Sect's conspiracy was truly terrifying. Chapter 456. The first ray of sunlight in the morning had just illuminated the entire array sect, and the entire sect had already fallen into an unprecedented solemn atmosphere. Today's talisman competition was a competition of dignity to all the disciples of the array sect, but it was a battle of life and death to the members of the array sect. The array sect had a magnificent martial practice field that was in the shape of an enormous 8 trigrams formation. It was called the Array Martial Field, and it was situated in the mountain stream. The Array Martial Field was surrounded by 8 tall mountains that were located in a tight manner and sealed off the Array Martial Field. The Array Martial Field floated in the air above the mountain stream like a small island that was suspended in the air. It looked mysterious and dignified from afar, and it was a place where the disciples of the Array sect usually spar with each other. It was large enough for a few thousand people to stand on it at the same time. The 8 mountains surrounding the Array Martial Field were already filled with countless disciples of the Array sect who had come to watch today's talisman competition. Every single one of them looked at the 12 members of the Talisman Grandmaster in the formation Martial Field with hostile gazes. To the disciples of the Erase sect, these members of the Talisman sect were like sheep that had entered a wolf's den. They wished for nothing more than to charge up and teach these high and mighty disciples a lesson. The 19 Khanate formation masters of the Erase sect and the other 9 disciples who were participating in the Talisman competition were in confrontation with the members of the Talisman sect on the Array martial field. Both sides emanated extremely fierce auras. Overall, the members of the Array sect were clearly superior. After all, the number of Khanate formation masters in the Array sect was much greater than the number of Talisman sect members. However, every single member of the Talisman sect seemed to be extraordinary and didn't take the members of the Array sect seriously at all. Every single one of them was arrogant and looked at the members of the Array sect with disdain and ridicule. They did have the right to be arrogant. The Talisman sect had defeated the Array sect in the Talisman competition for 9 consecutive years and suppressed the Array sect to the point they couldn't raise their heads. If nothing unexpected happened, this would be the Talisman sect's 10th victory, and it would also be the last Talisman competition. After today, the Array sect would vanish from the boundless memories of history, and the Talisman sect would obtain the entire foundation of the Array sect. From then on, the Array sect would cease to exist on the 3 continents, and only the Talisman sect would lead the Array Talisman world. This Talisman competition had been secretly manipulated by the Talisman sect since 9 years ago, and it was originally an unfair competition. However, it was already too late for the Array sect to realize this fact. Master Lu and Sitiyang Tian were also present. There was nothing strange about them. The two of them looked at the Array master with unfriendly eyes. But for some reason, from time to time, Master Lu would reveal a trace of restlessness. He did not seem to be in a good mental state. "Master Lu, what's wrong with you?" Mu Yu, who was standing beside Master Lu, noticed that something was wrong with Master Lu and asked curiously. Master Lu shook his head slightly and said, "I don't know. I always feel that something will happen today. Maybe I'm overthinking it?" Mu Yu patted Master Lu's shoulder and comforted him. "Everything is going according to our plan. They will pay the price for this." Mu Yu looked at Sitiyang Tian. Sitiyang Tian still had a gloomy look on his face. He didn't look very likable. As if sensing Mu Yu's gaze, he turned his head and glanced at Mu Yu before looking away in disgust. He seemed to have forgotten everything that happened last night. He still thought that Mu Yu was a spy from the Talisman sect. Just like how Mu Yu still thought that Sitiyang Tian was a spy from the Talisman sect. Mu Yu also disliked Sitiyang Tian. "I hope so." Master Lu looked at Mu Yu worriedly. Then, he glanced at the calm Mu Qinghong and snorted softly. "Sect Master Zhuge, your sect always loses in the Talisman competition every year. I hope I can see something different this year." Chang Tianqing cupped his hands and smiled. "There's no need for Sect Master Chang to worry. The disciples of my Array sect are all favored by the heavens. They will win glory for our Array sect." Zhuge Xiaosheng glanced at the 9 disciples on his side who were participating in the Talisman formation competition and sighed inwardly. Win glory? Relying on the 5 spies from the Talisman sect among the 9 disciples to win glory for the Array sect? Chang Tianqing sneered in his heart. Apart from Luo Feilong, Ji Wen Kai, and Mu Qinghong, who were from the Talisman sect, the other 2 acquired realm disciples were also from the Array sect. His gaze fell on Mu Qinghong. Mu Qinghong nodded at him imperceptibly. All of this was seen by Mu Yu, but he didn't say anything. He knew that if he wanted to defend the last line of defense of the Array sect today, he had to rely on Mu Qinghong's strength. The warm sunlight shone on the martial arts field and on every disciple of the Array sect. However, it could not dispel the hostility in their hearts towards the Array sect. "Sect Master Zhuge, why don't we increase the stakes in this year's Talisman competition?" Chang Tianqing smiled with ulterior motives. Zhuge Xiaosheng's gaze was like a sword as he said, "How does Sect Master Chang want to increase the stakes?" "Your sect's Array Hall was the most precious treasure of the Array sect in the past. It contains the most complete array of talisman techniques in the world. It was originally owned by both the Array sect and the Talisman sect. The Array sect has occupied it for so many years but has not been able to cultivate any amazing disciples. It's really a waste. Why don't you return it to us? Chang Tianqing was still full of confidence. Sect Master Chang, the Array Hall was indeed the most precious treasure of the Array sect in the past. However, when the Array sect was separated, your talisman sect took away the precious Array talisman stone. That stone is not inferior to the Array Hall. Since you want to gamble, you should take out the same chips as the Array Hall, right? Zhuge Shaosheng was not ambiguous at all. The Array sect had two precious treasures. One was the Array Hall, which gathered the most complete array of talisman techniques in the world. The other was the Array Talisman Stone. It was said that one could use the Array Talisman Stone to break all the talisman and array techniques in the world. These two items were the most precious treasures of the Array Talisman sect. In the past, the Array Talisman sect had an unwritten rule that whoever could possess these two treasures could become the sect master of the Array Talisman sect. However, because these two items were kept separately by the Talisman sect and Array sect's ancestors, the Array Talisman sect had never had a true sect master. Chang Tianqing sneered. All right, if sect master Zhuge wants to gamble, then this old man will also use the Array Talisman Stone as a chip. A black and white stone appeared in Chang Tianqing's hand. This stone was very inconspicuous and was only the size of a palm. However, when it appeared, the array around the Array Marshal field trembled slightly and became unstable. It was as if it had met its nemesis, and there were faint signs of collapse. This was the Array Talisman Stone. It contained the essence of talisman and array techniques. It was said that any talisman and array techniques in the world were useless in front of it. These were the two most precious treasures of the Array Talisman sect. Its power was on par with the Array Hall, and they restrained each other. The Array Hall could instantly set up all sorts of mysterious arrays in the world, while the Array Talisman Stone could break all talisman and array techniques. However, there was one type of spell that it could not break, and that was the protective array inside the Array Hall. The Array Talisman Stone was the biggest reason why Chang Tianqing wanted to obtain the Array sect's property. No matter how the Array sect set up the array, it was useless in front of the Array Talisman Stone. The relationship between the Array Hall and the Array Talisman Stone was like a spear and a shield. As long as the Array Hall was activated, everyone would be perfectly protected and the Array Talisman Stone would not be able to break through. However, if the Array Hall wanted to mobilize all the arrays of the Array sect to attack the Talisman sect, it would not work in front of the Array Talisman Stone. Chang Tianqing kept the Array Talisman Stone, and his gaze inadvertently swept across Master Lu and Mu Qinghan. With the help of these two people, as long as the two of them entered the Array Hall and stopped the activation of the Array Hall, it would be useless even if the entire Array sect hid in the Array Hall. If that's the case, then there's no need to say anything more. Let the talisman competition begin. Zhuge Shaosheng was infuriated. No matter what the stakes were, this was an unfair competition and the Array sect would lose without a doubt. He had used the Array Hall as a bargaining chip only because he wanted to take a gamble. Today, the Array sect was at a critical juncture of life and death. If they could not survive, the Array Hall would be taken by the Talisman sect. There was not much of a difference. Fengmu, we're counting on you today. Zhuge Shaosheng muttered to himself. He did not care about the outcome of the talisman competition. He cared more about the survival of the Array sect. At this moment, many disciples from the Talisman sect and Stargate had secretly gathered outside the Array sect. As long as Chang Tianqing gave the order, they would all rush into the Array sect and massacre the disciples of the Array sect. Muyu had arranged a lot of plans and was waiting to lure the wolf into the house and beat the dog. However, the moment Chang Tianqing took out the Array Talisman Stone, he felt uneasy because many arrays that could kill the enemy were useless in front of the Array Talisman Stone. However, no matter how powerful the Array Talisman Stone was, there was only one Array Talisman Stone. Even if these arrays were useless against Chang Tianqing, it did not mean that they were useless against others. Both sides were competing with each other. However, Zhuge Xiaosheng did not know that Chang Tianxing had already known about Zhuge Xiaosheng's counterattack plan. He had even changed the plan last night. All the arrangements that Mu Yu had made were now useless. What's even more laughable is that you naively thought that Situ Yang Tian was the real traitor. The corners of Zhou Jinglin's mouth curled into a vicious smile. He looked at all the disciples of the erased sect as if he was looking at dead people. You bunch of pitiful worms. Just wait to kneel in front of us and tremble. Ha! Mu Yu's gaze fell on Situ Yang Tian. No one knew what he was thinking. With the melodious sound of a bell, the array talisman competition finally began. According to the rules, the array talisman competition was divided into 9 rounds. The first round was for the Houtian disciples, the second round was for the Zhongtian disciples, and the third round was for the Xiantian disciples. The rules of the array talisman competition were very simple. Everyone would use their array talisman techniques to force the opponent out of the array martial field, or to force the opponent to the point that they could no longer use any techniques. At the same time, both sides had sent out their contestants. The first round was between the Houtian disciples of the Talisman sect and the Houtian disciples of the Array sect. The Array sect sent out a disciple named Sunningda. He was the first young disciple at the 9th stage of the Gold Core realm. He was only 16 years old, but he already had such a cultivation. He was already one of the best amongst the Houtian disciples. However, he was also a spy from the Talisman sect. Array sect, Sunningda. Talisman sect, Linhui. Zhuge Xiaoxing knew that Sunningda was a spy. He could have sent someone else to represent the Array sect, but he thought about it. Luo Feilong and Ji Wenkai had information on all the Zhongtian disciples. No matter who he sent out, the Talisman sect would know the weaknesses of their array techniques and find a way to defeat the Array sect. There was no need to send someone else. The first round of the Talisman Array competition was filled with people from the Talisman Grandmaster. What a joke. Chapter 457. Mu Yu watched the competition between the Houtian disciples from the side. The battle between formation and talisman techniques seemed to be very exciting, but it didn't arouse his interest at all. His attention was still on Situ Yang Tian and Mu Chenghong as he pondered. Mu Chenghong walked over and looked at the 2 Houtian disciples of the Talisman sect. He suddenly smiled and said, "Junior brother, what do you think are the chances of our Array faction winning against the Talisman sect this year? What do you think, senior brother?" Mu Yu looked at Mu Chenghong and then looked at the 2 people in the arena. He felt that it was funny. To a certain extent, the Talisman sect was entertaining itself in the Talisman sect. What are the chances of the Array faction winning? With Junior Brother in our Array faction, I feel that our chances of winning are much higher. Mu Chenghong said slowly. Senior Brother, you're flattering me. Does this mean that Senior Brother is confident in winning against the Talisman sect? Mu Yu asked indifferently. In the Talisman Array faction, there were 2 Houtian disciples who were spies of the Talisman sect. There were also 2 Zhongtian disciples who were spies of the Talisman sect. As for the Xiantian disciples, there was Mu Chenghong, the most well-hidden disciple of the Talisman sect. It was probably impossible for the Array faction to win. I'll do my best. Mu Chenghong's face was blurred as if he was hesitating about something. Then he asked, Junior Brother, have you looked at the 3rd Array tablet? No, I'm not in the mood. Mu Yu shook his head and said. Mu Chenghong sighed and said, I understand. He looked very lonely, as if he had heard the news that he didn't want to hear the most. Then he shook his head slightly and stared into the distance without saying anything. The 2 Houtian disciples were still working hard in the arena. The people of the Talisman sect were watching this show that had already been decided. They were full of ridicule. All the disciples of the Array faction were still cheering for Sun Ingda in the distance. Even the other Xiantian Array masters who didn't know what was going on looked at Sun Ingda with hope, hoping that he could fight for the Array faction. However, how could a few words of encouragement be enough to fight for the Array faction? However, all the disciples of the formation school suddenly erupted into cheers. Even many Khanate formation masters couldn't help but reveal happy expressions because Sun Yingda had actually defeated the Talisman School's Lin Hui. Mui was slightly surprised. Sun Yingda was undoubtedly a spy from the Talisman Grandmaster. However, why didn't the Talisman Grandmaster choose to win this competition? He surveyed his surroundings and saw the delighted expressions of the Array faction disciples. He also noticed that the people from the Talisman sect did not even frown when they saw that Lin Hui had lost the competition. On the contrary, they even revealed mocking expressions. He suddenly understood what the Talisman sect was up to. Before destroying a person, one must first inflate them. Chang Tiancheng glanced at the performance of the disciples of the Array faction, and the corner of his mouth revealed a vicious sneer. Cheer! Rejoice in your pathetic victory. When you think you're going to win, I'll drag you down from the sky and make you fall hard. That's what I want to see. The Talisman Grandmaster had defeated the Array faction for several years in a row. Continuous victories had made them feel bored, and they wanted to play something new. First, they would let the members of the Array faction see hope of winning. Then, they would ruthlessly defeat them. Finally, they would reveal the truth and make the members of the Array faction fall to rock bottom. This was to let the disciples of the Array faction understand that they could only win if the Talisman Grandmaster wanted them to win. If they wanted to destroy them, they couldn't escape. This was a game. Not only did the Talisman Grandmaster want to control the victory of this game, they also wanted to play with the emotions of the disciples of the Array faction. Once they were done playing, they would tell everyone the cruel truth and let the disciples of the Array faction know how invincible the Talisman Grandmaster was. Muyu recalled what Mu Qinghong had said about the Array faction having a high chance of winning. So this was what he meant? There were a total of 9 competitions. If nothing unexpected happened, the Talisman Grandmaster would let the Array faction win 4 rounds. This would let the disciples of the Array faction see hope that they could finally hold their heads high this year. Then, they would ruthlessly crush their dreams. How ruthless! Muyu stared at the members of the Talisman Grandmaster with an uncertain expression on his face. This was no longer a simple competition between arrays and talismans. It was a method used by the Talisman Grandmaster to humiliate the Array faction. The second round was a contest between the disciples of the Zhongtian sect. The Array faction had sent Luo Feilong up. Luo Feilong and another Zhongtian sect disciple from the Talisman Grandmaster announced their names on the stage and began their competition. The clash between Array techniques and Talisman techniques was pale and powerless. In almost an instant, Luo Feilong's opponent was sent flying and landed outside the arena. The Array faction had won another round. Thank you for letting me win. Luo Feilong's lips curled into a smile as he waved his hand domineeringly at the disciples of the Array faction. Senior brother Luo has won. That's great. Senior brother Luo is so awesome. Senior brother Luo is indeed our pride. The disciples of the Array faction erupted into enthusiastic cheers once again. However, these cheers were extremely ear-piercing to Zhuge Xiaoxing's ears. An invisible flame of anger burned in his heart. The happier the disciples of the Array faction were, the louder they shouted, the more they humiliated him. He sighed softly, but the anger in his heart turned into sadness. His disciples were acting according to someone else's script, and they were being played like monkeys without knowing it. But he, the sect master, clearly knew the truth of the matter, yet he couldn't stop their foolish cheers. How sad was this? I really don't deserve to be the sect leader. Sigh. Zhuge Xiaoxing shook his head gently. Everyone was drunk, and he was the only one who was sober. The cruel truth had been tormenting him. He understood that the reason why the Array faction was being humiliated so casually was because of his negligence as the sect leader. In the third round, only the Zhongtian disciple Song Qingyu was up against the Xiantian disciple from the Talisman Grandmaster Jiang Xiangdi, the 75th Extreme Immortal. The Array faction could not find a third Xiantian disciple to participate in the competition. Therefore, they could only send Song Qingyu, a Zhongtan Array master, as a substitute. Array faction, Song Qingyu. Song Qingyu's cultivation was at the fifth heavenly layer of out-of-body stage. His talent in array techniques was not directly related to his cultivation. However, the higher one's talent in array techniques, the stronger one would be. This was the characteristic of an array master. If both the Zhongtian array master and Xiantian array master were at the fifth heavenly layer of out-of-body stage, the Xiantian array master would definitely be able to suppress the Zhongtian array master. You don't have the right to know my name. Jiang Xiandi did not take Song Qingyu seriously at all. The Talisman Grandmaster would let the array faction win a few rounds this time. However, they would definitely not let the array faction win in the Xiantian disciple competition. The Xiantian disciple was the face of a faction. The Talisman Grandmaster wanted to viciously slap the face of all the Xiantian array masters of the array faction. Song Qingyu's face was flushed red. He was furious that he was looked down upon. However, he did have a right to be arrogant. Jiang Xiangdi was a Xiantian disciple of the Talisman Grandmaster and also an extreme immortal. She was indeed much stronger than him. He knew that he was no match for this woman. The only thing he could do was to try his best not to lose too badly. Endless red light covered Jiang Xiangdi's body. Amulet shadows flickered within her. Then, her body floated up lightly and turned into a shadow that floated towards Song Qingyu. The Xiantian Array Foundation floated around Song Qingyu. A majestic aura rushed towards Jiang Xiangdi. Song Qingyu had obtained many Xiantian Array Foundations for this talisman competition. With these foundations, he believed that even if he lost, he would not let his opponent win too easily. 7 rolling heavenly thunders appeared in the array martial field. They were arranged in the shape of the Big Dipper. Each heavenly thunders flickered with brilliant heavenly might. It was as if an unparalleled thunder god had descended and could purify the evil energy in the world. As soon as the 7 heavenly thunders appeared, the array martial field surged. Dark clouds gathered and shrouded Jiang Xiangdi's figure. Song Qingyu's best array technique was called the 7 Stars Heavenly Thunders. It was originally a culmination array technique. However, with the support of the Xiantian Array Foundation and the guidance of Master Lu, the 7 Stars Heavenly Thunders had the power of an Xiantian array technique. Even an ordinary Xiantian disciple would not dare to underestimate it. Song Qingyu is able to use the 7 Stars Heavenly Thunders to such an extent. This child's talent is also extraordinary. Immortal Master Xia could not help but praise. Yes, I feel that Jiang Xiangdi will need to spend at least some effort to deal with these heavenly thunders. Each 7 stars heavenly thunders will definitely cause great damage. Moreover, each heavenly thunders will be more powerful than the last. Once the 7th heavenly thunders is released, the power will be strengthened more than 10 times. Array Master Redwater said. As he spoke, the first heavenly thunders had already struck toward Jiang Xiangdi. Jiang Xiangdi's drifting figure suddenly stagnated, and then she retreated. The first heavenly thunders did not hit her. Instead, it blasted on the ground, causing the entire array martial field to tremble. However, the array martial field itself was protected by an indestructible array. This little power was not enough to cause any damage to it. It's working. Song Qingyu's face lit up. He found that his 7 stars heavenly thunders could actually block the opponent's advance. This meant that the opponent was also very afraid of his array technique and did not dare to take it head-on. The second heavenly thunders followed and struck toward Jiang Xiangdi again. Jiang Xiangdi looked at the insufferably arrogant heavenly thunders but did not dodge. Instead, a disdainful sneer appeared at the corner of her mouth. Then, she just casually extended her finger and gently pointed forward. Swift talisman shadows appeared on Jiang Xiangdi's finger and disappeared in a flash. At the same time, the heavenly thunders had already struck down. However, when the heavenly thunders approached her body, they suddenly disappeared. What's going on? Song Qingyu suddenly felt flustered. The 7 stars heavenly thunders were his array technique and were connected to his mind. However, at this moment, he suddenly lost one of them. It was as if someone had forcibly taken it away. Then, as if he had sensed something, he suddenly turned around. However, it was too late. Boom! He didn't know when the second heavenly lightning had appeared behind him and struck him right on the spot. The blue electric arc acted on Song Qingyu's body, causing his entire body to be covered in dust. There was even a burning smell coming from his body. 7 stars, heavenly thunders? You have a nerve to show off such a childish array technique in front of my talisman technique. What a disgrace. Jiang Xiangdi chuckled. She extended her finger again, and the talisman shadows rapidly flew out towards the remaining 5 heavenly thunders. When Song Qingyu regained his senses, he was shocked to find that he had already lost control of the 7 stars heavenly thunders. His array technique was actually taken away by Jiang Xiangdi. At this moment, the 3rd heavenly thunders rolled towards him. He tried his best to move half a step. However, after being struck by the 2nd heavenly thunders, his body was very numb. He was slower by a beat and was struck by his 3rd heavenly thunders. PFFF. Song Qingyu spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out of the martial arts field. The competition is not over yet. Jiang Xiangdi smiled charmingly. Her figure disappeared from the spot and reappeared behind Song Qingyu. She kicked Song Qingyu back into the martial arts field. Then, the 4th heavenly thunders struck down, followed by the 5th heavenly thunders. Boom! Song Qingyu had already fallen into a coma. His entire body was char-black. There was not a single piece of unharmed flesh on his body. Enough! We admit defeat for this round. Zhuge Shaoxing angrily rebuked. Admit defeat? According to the rules of the talisman competition, only those who leave the martial arts field or those who participate in the competition lose their spell technique will be considered defeated. Your sect's disciples' array technique has not disappeared yet. Sect Master Zhuge, I think it's better if you don't break the rules. Chang Tiansheng smiled cruelly. Everyone from the array faction had a huge change in expression. Jiang Xiangdi was a vicious woman. Song Qingyu was not her opponent at all. However, she did not want to win so easily. She used a strange talisman technique to seize Song Qingyu's array technique. She wanted to use the remaining heavenly thunders on Song Qingyu. The 7 stars heavenly thunders was Song Qingyu's array technique. According to the rules, as long as the spell technique did not disappear, Song Qingyu would not be considered defeated. Chapter 458. Boom! Boom! Every bolt of lightning landed on Song Qingyu's body, causing everyone's heart to tremble slightly. Song Qingyu's entire body had been blasted unconscious by his own array technique. His entire body was emitting black smoke, and his clothes were completely charred. He looked like a lump of charcoal, and it was a tragic sight. All the disciples of the array faction cursed angrily. They were all accusing Jiang Xiangdi of being a vicious woman. However, Jiang Xiangdi did not feel guilty at all. Instead, she revealed a trace of morbid pleasure on her face. Torturing people was her favorite pastime. The more miserable her opponent was, the more excited she was. After the 7th bolt of lightning landed on Song Qingyu's body, Song Qingyu's array technique had completely disappeared and she had won. Jiang Xiangdi snorted reluctantly. She didn't continue to attack Song Qingyu, because rules were rules. She wouldn't let Zhuge Shaoxing get hold of any information that could be used against her. Jiang Xiangdi made a provocative gesture towards all the disciples of the array faction before she walked out in satisfaction. Muyu clenched his fists. Song Qingyu was considered his new mentor. Although he did not need a mentor, Song Qingyu was usually a very responsible person. He did not expect that he would be tortured by a vicious woman from the talisman sect today. His opponent could have won easily, but she had used a terrifying array technique and perfectly utilized the rules of the array talisman competition. She had severely injured Song Qingyu in front of all the disciples of the array faction. At this moment, Song Qingyu could only exhale and not inhale. Zhuge Shaoxing suppressed the anger in his heart and rushed over to Song Qingyu. At the same time, he quickly transferred his inner energy into Song Qingyu's body. However, his expression gradually darkened because he realized that Jiang Xiangdi had added a vicious array of talisman techniques into the bolt of lightning. It had actually destroyed more than half of Song Qingyu's vital meridians. What a vicious heart! Zhuge Xiaoxing's heart was bleeding. Song Qingyu was a very outstanding person among the Zhongtian array masters. However, he had ended up in such a state. A member of the talisman sect had openly committed murder in front of him. As the sect master, he could not do anything about it. This was a deep humiliation. Mu Yu's figure flashed and appeared beside Song Qingyu. He pried open Song Qingyu's mouth and fed him a tier 5 healing pill. He was deeply enraged when he saw Song Qingyu's miserable state. Why were the members of the talisman sect so vicious? Zhuge Xiaoxing looked at the tier 5 pill in Mu Yu's hand and was slightly shocked. He did not understand where Mu Yu had obtained this tier 5 pill. He took a deep look at Mu Yu and began to doubt Mu Yu's identity, but he didn't say anything. This was because the heavenly array Dao had told him that Feng Mu could be trusted. Under the treatment of Mu Yu's pill, Song Qingyu's breathing gradually stabilized. However, his injuries were very serious. Even with Mu Yu's pill, it was hard to say if he could make a full recovery in the future. Is the array sect still going to compete? Don't worry, we will be gentler next time. A post-liminary realm disciple of the talisman sect who was at the 9th heaven of the Golden Core realm challenged. Even a Jindan period disciple was so arrogant. It could be seen how domineering the talisman sect was. Teach them a lesson. Kill those bastards from the array sect. All the disciples of the array sect were unable to restrain their anger. They roared angrily and wanted nothing more than to rush up and tear the members of the talisman sect into pieces. However, the disciples of the talisman sect continued to look at the disciples of the array sect without any change in their expressions. They were condescending and full of mockery. The disciple of the array sect was called Yi Hong. He was not a spy, but a true disciple of the array sect. However, his face was filled with panic. He had never fought against a disciple of the talisman sect before. When he saw Song Qingyu being beaten to a half-dead state, he had already thought of retreating. How are you going to die? The disciple of the talisman sect laughed cruelly. He stretched out his hand, and a yellow talisman paper floated in his hand. It was rotating slowly, but the aura emitted by the talisman paper caused Yi Hong's heart to palpitate. The devilish smile caused Yi Hong to shudder. When he saw the talisman technique on the disciple of the talisman sect light up, he thought of Song Qingyu again. The battle intent in his heart had completely vanished. He took 2 steps back in terror and shouted, I admit defeat. He admitted defeat. He had lost without a fight. Jiang Xiangdi's talisman technique from before had left an indelible shadow in Yi Hong's heart. He was afraid that he would follow in Song Qingyu's footsteps and didn't want to be tortured by others. Therefore, he chose to admit defeat in a panic. All the disciples of the array sect were stunned. They never thought that Yi Hong would admit defeat without any backbone. Admitting defeat without a fight was the most despised thing. Many disciples of the array sect had already started to curse in a low voice. They accused Yi Hong of having no backbone. Admit defeat? Huh? Are all the members of the array sect so cowardly? Are you all so scared that you're lying on the ground? The disciple of the talisman sect laughed arrogantly. He, a cultivator of the Jindan period, had started to laugh at all the disciples of the array sect on the field. His unbridled and domineering expression was written all over his face. Not bad. You're really a sensible person. I had originally planned to beat you into the second Song Qingyu. What a pity. The disciple of the talisman sect looked at Yi Hong with disdain before he slowly walked down the field. The talisman sect had won the 4th round of the competition without a fight. Zhuge Xiaoxing shook his head slightly. It was no wonder that Yi Hong would be so scared. Anyone would tremble with fear when they saw Song Qingyu's situation. The disciples of the array sect always felt that they lacked some kind of spirit. They couldn't compare to the disciples of the talisman sect in terms of aura. Had they really been suppressed by the spies sent by the Talisman sect over the past few years that they didn't even have the confidence to defeat the Talisman sect? If that was the case, how could the Erase sect fight against the Talisman sect? Sigh. I didn't expect the Erase sect to be destroyed in my hands. Zhuge Xiaosheng understood that he might be one of the most skilled people in the cultivation world in terms of array skills. However, he definitely wasn't a talent in managing the Erase sect. He usually only focused on studying array skills and neglected the management of his disciples. He couldn't absolve himself from the blame for the predicament that the Erase sect had fallen into today. Every disciple of the Talisman sect had a smug smile on their faces. Jiang Xiangdi had successfully left a deep impression on all the disciples of the Erase sect and obliterated their confidence. Chang Tiansheng scanned the disciples of the Array sect who had suddenly become deathly silent and high spirits. This was the effect he wanted. However, there was no meaning in winning if this was the only result. This was a game, and they had to play it to their heart's content. Our Talisman sect will give up on the 5th round. We don't want to cripple anyone else. If that happens, everyone in the Array sect will be treated as cowards. Isn't that too sad? The Erase sect has won the 5th round. Chang Tiansheng announced loudly. The Array Talisman competition was completely in his hands. He wanted to let the disciples of the Erase sect understand that if the Erase sect wanted to win, they had to get his approval. They would only have a chance to win if he allowed them to win. Cheng Zhue heaved a sigh of relief. He had originally arranged for the 5th person to go on stage. Although he wouldn't admit defeat so easily like Yi Hong, his heart was still uneasy, and he was afraid that he would lose miserably. The Talisman sect's sudden surrender made him feel as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He looked at Chang Tiansheng with a trace of gratitude. Zhuge Xiaosheng's heart grew more and more sorrowful. Today's Array Talisman competition had completely changed. The Talisman sect was in charge of the Array Talisman competition, and they had all the disciples of the Array sect in the palm of their hands. He really wanted to kick out all the spies who had participated in the Array Talisman competition and let others go on stage. At least if they lost, they would lose fair and square. However, even if they didn't let Luo Feilong, Ji Wenkai, and the rest go on stage, their Array sect still wouldn't be able to defeat the Talisman sect. With the first Yi Hong, there would be a second. Yi Hong's surrender explained everything. The disciples of the Array sect didn't have the determination to fight for the glory of the sect. Compared to the glory of the sect, they were more concerned about their own safety. If a sect's disciples became spineless, then the sect would only exist in name. The 6th round was a contest between Xiantian disciples. Feng Mu, you should also forfeit. Master Lu walked over anxiously and said to Mu Yu. When he wasn't controlled by Zhou Jinglin, he was still a loyal Xiantian array master of the Array sect. He was concerned about Mu Yu's safety and the future of the Array sect. He was worried that Song Qingyu's situation would happen to Mu Yu. Then, the hope of the Array sect would really be destroyed. The next round was originally planned to let Mu Yu go up, but Master Lu was very worried. The fact that the Array sect had a genius like Mu Yu couldn't be hidden from the Talisman sect. If Mu Yu went up, they would definitely find a way to strangle Mu Yu in the cradle. Master Lu was concerned about everything in the Array sect, but he didn't know that he had become the key to the survival of the Array sect. Mu Yu shook his head slightly and said, I can't forfeit. If I forfeit, all the disciples of the Array sect will be disappointed. I'm the only hope, aren't I? Among the remaining 4 people who hadn't participated in the competition, Mu Yu, Ji Wenkai, and the other Houtian disciple were all spies of the Talisman sect. It was impossible for them to defeat their fellow sect members. Only Mu Yu could salvage the situation for the Array sect. Only by winning 1 round could they raise the morale of the sect. Mu Yu wanted to walk up, but Zhuge Xiaosheng stopped him. Nonsense. In the name of the sect master, I forbid you from going up. Zhuge Xiaosheng said sternly. If Mu Yu didn't go up, the disciples of the Array sect would be disappointed. But if he went up, the future of the Array sect would be bitterly disappointed. They could lose the Talisman competition, but nothing could happen to Mu Yu. Only Feng Mu knew how to control the Array Hall. I'll go up for the next round. Mu Chunghong said slowly. He looked at Mu Yu with a smile on his face. That smile was so natural, and there was no trace of falsehood in it, but it made Zhuge Shaoxing angry. At this moment in the Array sect, Mu Qinghong's smile was obviously a naked mockery. Zhuge Shaoxing's heart was filled with endless anger. No matter how good his self-restraint was, he couldn't help but roar in his heart when he saw Mu Qinghong smile. Mu Qinghong, you traitor! Our Array sect has been nurturing you for so many years, but I didn't expect that we were nurturing an ingrate. However, Zhuge Shaoxing couldn't reveal his true thoughts. He had to endure it. Once the Talisman Grandmaster and Stargate attacked the Array sect, he had to borrow the power of the traitor Mu Chunghong to hold the line. Only then could Mu Yu activate the Array Hall and resist the Talisman Grandmaster's attack. Be careful. Zhuge Shaoxing tried his best to squeeze out a caring smile. For the sake of his plan, he, the sect leader of the Array sect, had to compromise with a spy from the Talisman Grandmaster. It was really infuriating. Thank you, sect leader. I'll do my best. Mu Qinghong still had a faint smile on his face. When he walked past Mu Yu, he said softly in a voice that only Mu Yu could hear, I've said before that I'll leave the most complete version of the Array sect in my memory. He said this again as if he was provoking Mu Yu. Mu Yu looked at Mu Qinghong. Mu Qinghong's eyes were very clear, like a pool of water without any impurities. No one would think that such a person was a spy with evil intentions. Mu Yu replied indifferently. I've also said before that I'll leave the most complete version of the Array sect in reality. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.